I'd rather die. If you're aiming for balance, you're aiming to be average, and average sucks everywhere. You're not meant to always enjoy it.
Because more testosterone makes effort feel good. So I will make myself feel like it.
Like in the back of the fire engine, if we had like something major kicking off, we would always stop. As soon as we arrived, we'd stop and go, one question, do you count Instagram as a dating app? The main reason I think most people get bored is because they also don't see results quick enough. Nobody goes, I regret the walk. Like they don't like.
If you want to be good in business, you have to eat a lot of shit and get a lot of rejections. If you want to win in your personal life with dating, you have to be willing to eat a lot of rejections. And 98% of men are not willing to do that because it really hurts. And it's easier for people to actually get rejected in business than it is in their personal life.
Right, we were out in Dublin there. I've never seen somebody with so much riz. It's like, look at the laugh, like it's like Hitch in real life. Like the man, oh my God, insane.
Awesome to have you, man. Fucking great. I'm very happy to do this.
Good to be on with a Riz master.
What got you into fitness? I had a look at your Google presence and I found an article from 2020 where, I don't know what Irish news outlet it was, but it basically said that you were quite unhappy with where you were and then you made some changes. So what got you into this?
Fitness itself, or are we talking coaching?
First fitness itself.
Oh, straight up insecurities and women. So I had like an issue when I was 16. Like I just struggled with women, conversations, typical stuff like how do I text, how do I do this? Yeah. And I automatically assumed the reason I struggled was I don't have a six pack. There's no other reason it could be. It's not my personality, it's this. So I think after I had a wee bit of issues there, I was like, this is what I can improve to improve my status. I didn't think of it like that. I was like, I'm not good enough. The gym is where I go. But I fell in love with fitness, not the idea of like getting a six pack. Because as you know yourself, getting muscles doesn't really get you too many women. It gets you more men in your DMs.
Yeah, you flex on men. Bros come up to you like, bro, amazing shape. Rarely ever do the women that we want come to us and congratulate us on a six pack. Yeah,
I think it does help. It definitely does because there's layers to it. But that's what got me in initially. And then the thing that's kept me in the long term is how it flows into other areas of my life. So like the first ever win I got was like, I was like, I want a six pack. I want to be lean, I want to be in shape. And like to do that, you have to have hard work, discipline, patience. And then I got that. And then I was like, fuck, like I can actually get what I want if I stick it out long enough. Because it took me a long time to get abs because I had no clue. Like I'm turning 30. Like I was watching like 8-minute ab videos and doing like 50 minutes of abs in my house because I was like, I think this is what's going to do it. Whereas now you're like, that's so stupid. But back then it was like normal. Yeah. So got that result and then it sort of led into everything else in my life. So that's what led me in there. As much as people are like, it wasn't inspiration. It wasn't Arnold on my walls. It was I want female attention. As much as most people won't admit that, that's what it was initially.
Amazing. And then for me, one of the reasons that I go, for example, like I hate the gym. To me, it's personally super boring, right? I like martial arts, right? So I used to teach karate at Maynooth University, right? It was awesome. So I did that. That I like. The gym I just do because it's mental and emotional. Because I want to look at myself. I want to be happy with myself. But it's 80% mental. Because I realize if I don't go to the gym for 2 or 3 days, my energy is not nearly the same. But I've gotten to a point where I'm really bored with the gym. I just do it out of pure raw discipline. Right? But I've recently started taking MMA classes in SBG. So there's a guy called Lee Hammett. He's amazing. He's been training MMA for 15 years, I would say. So I started taking private classes with him. And that's awesome. That I really like, right? I'm not trying to become a professional fighter because I'm trying to preserve my brain capacity, right? But for me, the gym is, because I have friends who like love the gym, but for me, it actually gets a little bit boring. So how do you make sure that it doesn't get boring? How do you bring variety to something that can become very monotonous?
I also thrive in that. So like it's the psychological perspective of like I see so many people moving from fit like just gym training to like high rocks MMA. I've done bits of MMA, like I have, and like I've done other sports, but I also look at that like, see now that it's boring and it's a harder mental challenge. That's where the gold is because that's where other people give up and that's where I gain the advantage. It sounds absolutely lunatic. It sounds like David Goggins, but it's that case of like when it's so boring, you're like, this is the same thing. Yeah. I'm like, that's when it's most important. I always say like the sessions, all the gym sessions don't matter. It's the ones you don't want to do. They're the ones that count. All the rest are easy. Yeah. So like whenever you're like that, you're probably training so long, it's normal. So then you can add, you can get a coach for extra accountability. It's not me pitching. It's just a case of like that extra layer to level you up where they make a cool training plan. You're excited and you're seeing results. The main reason I think most people get bored is because they also don't see results quick enough. And that's because of like the same issue you'd have. Like a lot of people won't hire you because it's the stigma around it. Like, oh, I don't know enough. Whereas I'm like, you ask me and I'm like, I have a coach for everything. Like absolutely. If I could have a coach, like dentist for brushing my teeth, I'm like, yeah, give me all the tips. But I think it's that idea, and it's having that thought process around like, you're not always going to enjoy it. Like it's getting over that. Like you're not meant to always enjoy it. That's where you build that like nice mental resilience layer. And then it's like, this isn't working on my body anymore. It's my mind. And that's where the goal is. It's like, do I always want to get in the ice bath? Do I always want to do this? No, but it's like, how do you feel after? And I'm always like, yeah, that one was.
And there's not a single day where you feel worse after the gym. Not one time have I ever felt worse. Now, you feel better to varying degrees afterwards, but every single time afterwards, you feel fantastic. At least you feel strong. And I've had it. I'm sure you've had that too. When you have a challenge in whatever area, be that in business or in your relationship life, if you have a hardcore gym session, afterwards the problem feels so small. And it's so interesting. One of Germany's best psychologists, Gunther Schmidt, he always says that it's never the challenge, but how big we perceived ourselves in relation to the challenge. Because we can feel like a challenge is totally overwhelming before a session. Then afterwards, we're like, it'll be fine.
Yeah. I think I always call this like, do you get post nut clarity? Yeah. I call it post gym clarity, because afterwards you're like, oh, that argument wasn't that big. Yeah. People get it after runs, they get it after walks. That's why I'm always like, if you have an issue, go for a walk, go for a run, go to the gym. Nobody goes, I regret the walk. Like they don't, like, do you know what I mean? But I regret sending that message. I regret being heated in the argument. Like a lot of the time, if I have issues anywhere, you'll see me go, I'm going here, and people be like, what? And I'll just go for a walk. I'll go away. I'll just disappear because I'm like, I can't think straight. And I got that from firefighting for a long time, because you don't get that opportunity just to slow the heart rate. Like in the back of the fire engine, if we had like something major kicking off, we would always stop. As soon as we arrived, we'd stop and go. And that 1 second though seems like a waste, but it makes the entire next hour of it makes everything so much easier, because you actually think a little bit clearer. I get where you're coming from. It's an interesting, it's a strange thing, do you know what I mean? But that post-gym clarity is like something that you don't think straight, and that's when most people make mistakes in every area. They're like personal, business, just not being clear-minded because they're too stressed.
And I think it boosts testosterone for up to 36 hours afterwards or something. There's like a constant, like if you go regularly, your testosterone levels are higher, not just because of muscle growth, but because of the exercise itself. And for me, it's just been the number one habit. I also like meditation. For example, my father, his number one habit has been meditation for 20, 30 years. And he has these Yoda vibes, right? So like my ex is Irish, right? We got married many, many years ago here, and we separated as well. But at the wedding, he gave a speech, and he has like this, so he runs a big company in Germany, but he has like these totally zenned out, meditated vibes, right? Whenever I speak to him, because I'm a little bit more hyperactive like yourself in terms of the energy, right? And my dad would go, I get a flight reflex. I can't sit next to you. You just like, it's like overwhelming energy for him, because he's so calm and so meditated. And I like meditation, and I'd like to get your take on it as well. Every time I do it, I feel better afterwards. But I realized my must-have habit is the gym. Have you done anything with meditation?
Yeah, I have. I think it's the thought process of, for me, it's like, I use journaling, but like I'm not like one of these people like I have to do it every day, because then I put this like mental pressure on myself of like, I must, like the habit's there. I have the discipline. If I need it, I know where to go. So for me, it's like how I feel today, basis of what I do. Like if I get up and it's Monday and I am buzzing with energy and I'm feeling good, like yes, I might do a little bit of something like a journal or ice, but I'm not gonna be like, I need to nail all these. Where if I feel like shit, the first thing I think is like, right, what do I need to do? Do I need a little bit of a talk with somebody? Do I need an ice bath? Do I need a sauna? What's gonna light me up again and like almost regulate? And it's like, if you're tired, I could use a little bit of caffeine, but if you take too much, you're now stimmed and you can't even think of what you're doing. So yeah, like I find balances in that, because it gives you clarity of thought, but I'm not, it's like find what works for you. I think a lot of people get fed up with meditation in particular because their thoughts go a tangent and they're like, I can't sit still. And I'm like, I don't know if it's Naval Ravikant says it, and I don't know if you've heard this, but he says it's like the first 3 months you meditate, it's like, imagine you've left your inbox and your Gmail full for 20 years. You're trying to get through that. That's you're trying to declutter. So he's like, it takes months and months. Yeah. But even people that are monks that are meditating lifetimes, you don't know what they're getting from it. Yeah. And I think it's just like, find what works for you. For some people it's a walk, it's that. I just think as long as you have a solace, you have clarity, you have something that ingrains you and makes you feel better, then it's really down to pick your, not poison, but pick your delicacy.
Yeah. Jack Kornfield, he is one of the best meditation teachers out there, I would say. He works with a lot of these tech billionaires. There's a video on YouTube where he's with the founder of OpenAI, Sam Altman. And so he's a student of his as well. So Jack Kornfield is in his 70s, I believe. He built the Spirit Rock Meditation Center in California. And he says what meditation does is 3 things. It quiets the mind, it opens the heart, and you return back to yourself, which is really nice because you get the calming effect. You get the reduction in cortisol. The opening of your heart is an increase in dopamine. You get to feel again. You return back to yourself. I'm not sure if you ever had this, but after a meditation session, you realize, oh, there's one thing. And you get a little bit of a different perspective shift. Yeah? What other habits are key for you?
Like I'm big on I'm such a dweeb, but at bedtime. I'm if he's hitting 9 p.m. and I'm like, what was the first thing I said to you? When you said podcast at 7, I was like, are you talking about 7:30, 8? I was like, bro, I'm in bed for 9. I was like, it's like, imagine you being on a date with me, girl going home, 8:45. I'm like,
yeah, she's like, shall we go? You're like, listen, you're hot and all, but my bed is better.
But I think it's one of them habits that for me, everything's went well off that. And it's an underpinning thing that is so underlooked. And I think there's a lot of studies coming out now. It's not just about quality and quantity. It's about keeping the hour the same. Yes. Whereas yourself, you could sleep 8 hours, but if you go to bed at 10 p.m. one day and midnight the next, you notice the shift. And for me, it's one of the things that underpinning principle will help everything from the way you look to your mental state to just your overall, it's your well-being, and it's your age. There's so many underpinning factors. And for me, that's probably when somebody comes to me and they're talking about training and nutrition, I'm like, what is sleep like? Because whenever I was in the fire service, I went in and done nights, and you'd swear I aged 10 years. You were like, motherfucker, what has been going on? So for me, the habit of I plan my days very differently to most people. So I don't time block in all these wee slots. I write out what needs done, and all I do is be like, this takes this long, this would take this long. And then what I realize is I can't fit all this in. So I just start deleting things. And I'm like, that has to go today. So I just prioritize. And I'm like, I actually can't do that. That has to go. And I think accepting that. The third thing that I would say habit-wise I've got very good at is picking what I'm going to suck at. Oliver Berkman says that quite a lot, and I've really stuck by that. It's I'm not going to be good at everything. I'm not going to be whenever I was building the business, the fitness, I wasn't I didn't have a great social life. I just accepted that. I was I'm going to have to give up my Saturdays for a while to build this motherfucker to the moon. And it's accepting that. Whereas I think people try and actually be balanced in every area. Whereas if you're aiming for balance, you're aiming to be average, and average sucks everywhere. I'd rather be good at a couple things and shit at others than be this jack of all trades. I'd like to be a master of a few. So I think picking, this is where I'm going, and that's all I'm aiming at, and then everything else falls to the wayside. It's a weird metric, but for me, that's given me a lot of clarity. I know I'm shit at certain things, and I'm okay with accepting it. And then I might dial back and realize that that's only for a season. So yourself, if you're pushing business, you're pushing that. I'm like, right, well, I'm going to suck at socializing for a bit. But then I know when to crank it back up, and I'm like, right, this is just on hold. So you don't have to be one dimensional. It's just knowing right now, business isn't a priority for me. Having fun is. Going on dates, whatever it is, I'm like, this is the priority. Everything else, because I got offered a sponsorship the other day. I got offered this. I get offered everything, even TV. And I'm just like, I'm not pushing. I'm like, so this is
what is a priority for you right now?
Right now for me, it sounds odd, but it's actually I've spent so long pushing it. It was figuring out where the fun is in my life. I'm planning that out and actually getting used to that. And for me, it's filming content now. I really light up doing that. Today I was in the middle of the streets challenging people to do press ups. And I was like, I would have killed to do this 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean? I was so lost 10 years ago with drugs and drink and everything. And for me to look at that and go, this is light me up. So I always do how do I feel? It's after this conversation, am I lit up or am I down? And then I'll be like, right, maybe that wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. So for me, that my main focus is on content, building my personal brand. That's what it's all about. And then that feeds everything else off the back of it. And I enjoy it. Because for me, if I'm not lit, I always highlight this, tomorrow I'm not guaranteed it. So if I do go, I've spent so long in this grind phase. I'll enjoy when I hit 1 million followers, when I get X in my bank account, whenever I have this beautiful girlfriend, and I've had it all, and I've been like, fuck, I'm miserable. I'm actually I feel worse now than whenever I was younger.
Because ultimately you realize that what brings happiness is, number one, the activity, right? It's doing the shit you like doing. That's what I realized as well. The more, because there's a lot of things that we have to do as men to get the outcomes we want, which includes sacrifice. But ultimately, if we do the things we want to do, be that filming content, for me it's teaching seminars, going out and socializing, right? Doing approaches, whatever it is. If you do the thing you really want to do and it gives you energy, that becomes the money. That becomes the money. Money itself obviously still matters, but that in of itself is it. That's why men can have fun just talking shit with the boys.
Yeah, great. It's like, as you said, like one of the, no matter where you are, there's certain things that still bring you joy. It's like, for example, like I remember hitting a really big month for me with a couple of things going on. And like the only thing I remember from that month is, yes, I remember the income. I remember sitting on my back with my mum and my dad in a cold November like last year with the heater on, having one beer and just talking shit. And I was supposed to go meet my friends at like 9 o'clock. And I sat with them till 1 a.m, me talking about bedtime. But like, I remember that from that month. Not what I done with the money.
Yeah.
No, and I'm like, so like now it's like I remember I had a really important thing on the day after my birthday this year, or like 3 days, and my once brought down a photo album of like me, and it was just really enjoyable. And that's when other stuff goes to the wayside. I'm like, I'll be tired tomorrow, Joe, whatever it is. And as you said, whatever lights you up, that is what does it. I could hear whenever you were doing your voice note me when you were doing approaches, I could hear it in your voice. I was like,
right? Because I was just out with the client, you know?
And like, you'll get that from me in the gym. Like if I'm in the gym with somebody, you're just like, this is where I fucking thrive. It's like there, it's on camera. Like you just see it now. I think a lot of the time too, if you don't know what you do thrive at, it's because you're not good at anything. I think the better you get at something, the more you enjoy it because you know you're good at it. It fulfills you. Like obviously like the first time you cold approach somebody, it wasn't like, this lights me up. It was probably like, holy sweet fuck. It's the same time whenever I walked in the gym, people actually laughed at me.
Yeah.
And it's
like,
really? Yeah, I remember like I used to struggle with like all the way to the minute I was shapeless. I remember being in the gym like 6 months and having to like, I used to tie, my dumbbells used to jump very big because we're like out near the country. So I used to tie little plates onto the side because I couldn't make the big jumps. And people would be like, oh, here's Joe, big plates himself.
I actually had that in high school. I started going to the gym when I was 16, right? It was never my focus to get very big, but it was more to support martial arts. But I was 16 or so, and I was talking to some guys, and I was like, I'm just doing 40 kilos now on each side or something. No, like in total, 40 plus the bar. And they were like laughing and they were talking shit. And like, get fucked, right? Like that is, to me, that was progress. You know? So how did you deal with that negative criticism? Did you just ignore it? Did you address it?
No, I think whenever you're at an age, most times you'll just swallow it and say fuck all, and you'll just have to like, it'll either make you or break you. I think it's very much like any sort of stick you get online, any breakup, it's all just about what way you internally let that focus you. Like you see it all the time whenever your friend gets broken up with by a female, she cheats on them, there's shit going on. And there's only two ways that fucker's going. He is going straight to drink, drugs, down the fucking tube, or watching Netflix and wanking himself to death. Excuse my French. Or he's leveling up in every area possible to the stage of where he's like, I don't like saying this, but like, that's not the woman I would pick anymore because my levels went so above that. Yeah. And that's literally the way it works for even like hatred, anything that comes on your life. You'll see it whenever like you're getting bullied in school. There's two ways people go. And it's all, as much as people say environment, nature, it's like, what's going on in the internal minefield for you of like,
what's the meaning we give the situation?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so key. It's like, that's why I said about like the training perspective. When you don't enjoy training, how do you mix up? Most people will be like, well, I add in a bit of this and that. I'm like, no, I flipped the script. I'm like, it's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
That for me is the key.
And I do that too. When I said it gets boring for me, it's not like I stop. I still do it. I go every second day. And my workouts have been very simple these days. So I just do, and you can tell me that this is nonsense in a second, but basically what I do, I just do 8 sets of bench and eight sets of pull-ups. So I do 8 sets of bench and then I do 90 pull-ups. So I did that earlier, right?
That's so, good, like, but it's fucking hectic.
I do, yeah. So I do 8 sets of bench, 2 warm-up sets, and then 8 sets of bench. It's not a lot, right? I do like 4 reps on 100, then I drop down to 90 kilos and I do like 6 to 8 reps or something. And then I do like 8 sets in total of that. And then I do the first set of pull-ups is like 90 to 20 pull-ups. And then I do 10 pull-ups across like 7 more sets. That's my workout. That's like takes me an hour and 10 minutes and then I feel good afterwards.
And there's no arms, no delts, no nothing.
Nothing. My leg day is me kicking, practicing my karate kicks on the back.
Oh, bro. cut. I didn't know who I was dealing with here. Like, I'm like, hopefully nobody in the bodybuilding world sees this. There's like, it comes down to what you want from it as well. That's probably one of the reasons why you maybe don't like thrive for it or love it as much. Because then you're not going to see results because you're always doing what you've always done. It's like, I guarantee you have clients who hate doing approaches or chatting to women until they like actually get a couple of wins and they see more results. Just like fitness. Like if I give you arm routine, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, my t-shirt's really tight now. You're like, I like doing arms now. Because it fulfills you even more because it sort of boosts you. It's like, most people won't admit it, but like, yes, I love training. I love the feeling. But I also love the fact of when I go into the gym and I pick up a 60 kilo dumbbell in each hand and I can just flick it up and start pressing it lightweight. Like, I love the fact, like, I know others can't do that because that takes like 6 years of grind, and then it's that fulfillment. Like, I'll just sort out with Trimland, don't worry at all.
Okay. We'll work on that. Yeah, but it's so true because with approaches, it's the same. Because in the beginning, I saw a video by Scott Galloway talking about this. If you want to be good in business, you have to eat a lot of shit and get a lot of rejections. If you want to win in your personal life with dating, you have to be willing to eat a lot of rejections. And 98% of men are not willing to do that because it really hurts. And it's easier for people to actually get rejected in business than it is in their personal life. Because at least when I do a cold call in the business, they just didn't want the business. No, if you talk to a girl and she doesn't like you, oh, apparently something's wrong with my face. Apparently I'm not lovable. Apparently I'll never figure this out. So men have this huge approach anxiety. There's only ever two reasons why men don't approach. It's approach anxiety or it's a lack of skill set. That's it. And I used to make all these excuses. I was like, I could if I really wanted to. Yeah, right. Shut the fuck up. Go do it then, right? It's like men think they're good at fighting and they think they're good at talking to women. And they're usually not good at either. And you're absolutely right. It's when they get I remember the first time ever I went out with my mentor when I was still working for Salesforce back in the day. The first night we went out, I didn't even fully approach. He did the approach. And then I talked to the girl for like 10, 15 seconds and he did the rest. And I was high for the night. Because I came out of a really bad marriage, right? Where I was like, I had a lot of anxiety. I was in a really bad state for like a year and a half. So I got out of this. So I got a lot of freedom. And then I remember like 4 weeks or so into like going out, doing some approaches, and I didn't drink. I didn't no alcohol, no drugs, no caffeine, zero, right? So I'm there and I'm talking to the Spanish girl in a pub. And I must have ignored all of her signals. Eventually after like half an hour or so, she grabs my face. She goes, are you going to kiss me today or not? I was like, all right. And we made out. That was the first time I ever kissed a girl the same day I met her. Because if you grew up a ginger in the West, you don't consider yourself the pinnacle of male attractiveness. Yeah. Let me tell you that. So that was and then I was hooked. I was like, this is crazy. You can actually change this. Because I saw her, I was like, it was so easy to say hi, but it would have been so easy not to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think from even my perspective, like, I would count myself as like a very confident individual. Like even like I have no problem like having a flirt, but it's one of them things where I do think it's all about the framing. Like I've been away before and the boys have went to me, dare you to approach, and you're just like, cause you've made it a thing now. It's like Whereas like you almost need to build a reflex where it's like you see it and you just go. You don't know
momentum.
You don't even know what you're doing. It's like that for me is key. I definitely notice a lot of men. See, you can hide now as well. Like even I think a majority of people will admit is like it's so much easier to DM. It's so much easier. But I do,
especially if you have 1.2 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah, it does alright. Like mine's too much though. Like the people who be DMing me.
How do you keep your dopamine levels in check? Because you must get a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, there's like, do you know what's the funny thing? It's like very interesting because like. You do get that, and that for me is like I remember hearing a quote, and it reminds me of the relationship thing. It's like loyalty isn't being loyal; it's just because you're married and that's it. It's loyalty is when you have a lot of options and you still pick the same person. Because I noticed that during like my last relationship 2 years ago, I was blowing up on Instagram, and I noticed even like there's a lot of but. It didn't come across like that. It just was like, well, there's just more in the fucking inbox. Who gives a fuck? Whereas like managing it now, I think it's just like, it's one of the things you'd be so surprised who comes. Like you're like, I wouldn't have considered myself on your level a while back. And now I'm like, I wouldn't date you because your personality, I just know it. Which is so strange. Like whenever because looks are a dime a dozen. So like I'm looking at like a person, I'm like, what have you got going on that's not just looks? And I like, whereas like that for me, I'm like, am I all right? Like I'm like, so it's looking for traits in the individual. That's probably more of an older thing, but like whenever I get a lot of porn stars and a lot of OnlyFans girls coming in looking collabs. And I'm like, it must be, I'm like, there must be a niche for small. But I'm just like, there must be the energy or something or whatever it is. Because I wouldn't be like, I'm ugly, I'm super attractive. So I'm just like, it's me. You can't really rate yourself. So yeah, I think from a dopamine perspective, I have the benefit of that. And it gives me confidence when talking to anyone at any time period. Like I have no problem. But I think if you were like to me randomly in the street and I was like, that girl's beautiful, and you were like, go approach. I think even I would still be like, oh, I can feel pressure there. Like I would do the rep and get turned down. But I will only go over to the person if I'm like, I actually think like this like, although you don't know, I'm like, you are super attractive. Like I would regret not coming to work. Whereas a lot of the time, not that I'm not too sure if you find the same, but I'm like, personality is what fucking gets me now. Like traits.
Yes.
And then that's what attracts me to the individual. By that stage, you already fucking know the person.
That's what you only figure out after you've talked to her, though. We can't anticipate personality. Now, sometimes you can look at somebody's face and be like, yeah, we're not right for one another. You can but most of the time you don't even know, because you can see somebody and she might look actually very serious or pissed off. The second you speak with her, bam, her entire face changes, right?
Yeah. I think it's a very strange one. Yeah, with the attention thing, it's something I think you're probably the same. It just becomes the new level. It's probably like the first time you drive your new car. For the first while, you're like, holy fuck, this is unreal. And then it's just like, oh, there's another person in my DMs. And you're like, well, that's dead on.
For me, it's probably less than for a lot of people, because Fernanda's on my DM, right? Is all over my profile. Now, the funny thing is there's still girls sliding into my DMs regularly who just completely blatantly ignore that. And then she's like, these girls, you know? Like, because they just blatantly ignore that.
But I think it's that case of like, if you're shown as having female attention, then like you automatically go up in everybody's eyes. Yeah. It's like if you have 5 women around you and they're all beautiful, even if you're just friends with them, you automatically, if you're doing any flirt and there's hands on, automatically to other women, I'm assuming that you go more impressive. Do you know what I mean? I'm assuming it. Like if I see a girl and she's getting like 3 people approach her, I'm like, fuck, there's something. She must be okay.
Yeah, it's social proof. It's pre-selection. Yeah.
Yeah, that must be very difficult. Whereas with a larger following, you get it automatically. Yeah. Because people just assume, oh, 1 million followers, 2 million, whatever it is, or X amount of followers, it must be there. Yeah. Whereas it is though, but it's just
with
like
guys as well. It's so funny when I meet people in person and they don't know. They're not. Sometimes we walk somewhere and then people recognize us. But sometimes I meet somebody in person, then you exchange Instagram. They're like, 1 million followers. The reaction is gas every single time. Because for me, I don't know how it is for you. I'm just a normal person. I'm just still me. You know, like I've grown and I have a skill set that's very unique, but I'm still just me. How is that for you, dealing with that rise of fame and people recognizing you?
I think it's the same as you. I think it's like you get the buzz, but like I'm always grateful, because the first thing I say is you don't bite the hand that feeds you. You don't, like, it doesn't matter if I'm in the airport, whatever, I always try and show up. I'll always do that. And I like it. Like, I don't know how people could not like it.
Exactly. I agree. Every single time I enjoy it. And the people are so nice. I'm just like, hey, thank you so much. It's a kind gesture.
It's never somebody coming and going, I fucking hate your stuff. Like, they're sitting there maybe looking at you from across the room, but they're never going to come up to you. It's always the people who enjoy your stuff. So it's always just like a reaffirm. It's such a fucking pull when you're on a date though. Whenever I'm on a date and it ever happens, I'm like, I'm like, yes. I was on one a couple months ago and we went to a cafe, and this will be funny. And she went in to go to the toilet, and I heard in the conversation, it was like, does your boyfriend mind if you photo, like he gets a photo? And she was like, it was like first date, and she was like, no, he'll be fine. So she came out and was like, look, the owner wants a photo of you at a cafe. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Came outside and the owner was like, yeah, look, I just want a photo. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Stood up, and she went, right, he's okay with it. The full kitchen staff, she put fucking 9 of them out for the photo. It was like a full thing. And then they asked her to take the photo, and then afterwards I was just like, are you impressed? I was like, it feels like I paid them to do that. Yeah. But like, that's not a bad thing. I think it's one of them things. It's
fun, right?
Yeah, it's just one of them things. Like, I think people make it out like it changes you or whatever, but it's just,
I don't think it does.
Part and parcel. It's all about your ego and keeping it in check and being grounded. Like, whenever I arrive home to Ireland, I'm still with my mom in her house. Like.
Exactly. It's the same thing, right? My mom's going to come visit me next week. She's going to fly over, you know? And that really makes you appreciate it a lot. Have you ever had any negative interactions because of this?
I've had quite a large amount. The only thing I ever got was like I would get quite a lot online. There's a lot of like, there'd be a lot of hate, not even in my DMs and stuff. There are a lot of people would screenshot, send me from fake accounts, like group chats talking about me and stuff, so I would know. But like, I don't really see a whole lot of it, or like I'd be on this account or that. yeah, like I've had bits and pieces or people shout out shit out of cars and stuff, but like at the same time, I'm also like, you're like, I'm psychotic. The more if you love or hate me, that's good because it means I'm not Marmite. Whenever it means you're not vanilla. Whenever you're vanilla, you're never going both ways. Like if I ask you and I pick a celebrity, I pick like Logan Paul, he's not really middle ground. He's a bit fucking wild. The same as like Andrew Tate or anybody else. You're like, fuck, they're over one side or the other, and you're like, well, either I like them or I don't. I'd rather be like that because otherwise you're not being true authentic.
No, you were absolutely polarizing. I like it though because I can resonate with it very well. But I also get it that people see my stuff and they're like either really yeah or oh what the fuck is that screaming ginger, you know? So like
you're passionate though, like
yeah, but it's true, you know. If it's real, it differentiates you, and I think intent really matters. Intention really matters because there's people who peak for a while, and I'm sure you've seen that, and then people who disappear and then they crash. I think if you have good intent, if you're genuinely a good, kind, caring person, we're all flawed, we have all of our mistakes, but if you're a good, kind, caring person and your intent is to really share good stuff, be that entertainment or valuable tips, that builds a brand for the long term.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is like I start every video with like, what's the value from this, or what is the entertainment? It's usually both, but like that's all most people want. Like for me, it's like I always say it's to help you learn and give you a laugh. And if I could do one or either or the both, that's all I want. Because like for me, everything is like in my space particularly, it's so serious. It's like this many grams of protein and this workout split, and then I'm standing there with a wig on in the gym curling and telling you you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
it's just,
with your dad. I watched the videos with your dad. They were awesome. They were so cool.
I appreciate
they were
that.
really good.
Yeah. It's hard to rope people in because like I'm like right, what do you want to do the video? And he's like 5 crates of beer, and I'm like 5 and I'm like done, and he's like no 10, and I'm like right, okay, calm down. And it's like Jesus Christ. But yeah, it's like for me, I think like what makes like for me, it's like who needs the gym the most, right? And see, when I think of it, I think of like, and this may be being straight, me lost, out of shape, just got broken up with, having issues, not feeling good. And I think that person won't watch a bodybuilder, but that person will see me, laugh at my videos, and then I will get them in the long run into fitness because they'll keep watching me and go, fuck, he's in good shape, he's normal, he's funny, he's confident. And then something I'll put up about mental health or a breakup or that, then they go, I resonate with him. Versus if you're just another dude eating chicken and broccoli, they're like, I don't want that life. I want to work hard, play hard, have a laugh. Yeah. And that's something I notice most people don't have in the fitness industry. It's like I'm like, I wouldn't want, like I've competed and I'm being straight. I've been backstage and I've looked around and been like, I don't want any of your lives. Why the fuck am I here? Like, this is terrible. Yeah. Like, I'm like, don't get me wrong. Yes, if you thrive on that and all, but I was like, we're all about to fucking, like, we're creaming our cakes over rice cakes here and honey, and this is weird.
Yeah.
Versus I want to be that person who's like, can go out the night out, have a laugh, but can also gym and is in like, not that I want it all because I feel like the balance thing, but that's where it comes from for me. And like, it's just one of them things where like, it's just, fitness for me just clicks different. And that's probably the best way to put it with all that.
Have you ever tried to give people advice, friends, and they didn't listen because they're friends and because they've known you for a long time, they don't take that advice too serious?
Yeah, of course. You're going to get that. My very first result, I only got into coaching because one of my friends went through like a breakup and was struggling with women. And me being 20, like 9 years ago, was like, Ops will definitely help me. So I got him shredded, but like it took me a long time to get him in shape. It took me like 40 weeks. I was coaching him in person. I done it as a favor. And then my coaching kicked off when he put up the result. I didn't ask him to. And then people were driving up to my house that knew me and posting money from my letterbox. Me not even asking, just being like, coach me, here's my number. And like £400, £500. I was like 21 at the time going, holy fuck. I was like, I didn't even know you could charge for this. But I've had people who don't take it serious. I think like, for example, if you get too close to somebody, it is hard to take advice from them as well. I think with fitness, because of the shape and the presence, like whenever I go into the gym,
you're the walking result. That's the thing. That's the good thing. You have the proof as you. You are the proof. Because in any other area, if I'm just on a video and they just see a ginger talking about dating advice, you're like, where's your proof? Right? And then when I have Fernanda in the video, it's different, right? If it's just me talk, and that took us a long fucking time to figure out, believe it or not. I was like, why do the videos of just me talking? Well, because people need to see the proof. In your videos, you are the proof.
Yeah, really, yeah, exactly. Because I'm like, with a lot of my clients, like when they're getting coached by me, I'm like, and it's the same with the mentorship and stuff, I'm like, when you're in better shape than me, you can lead. That's why I believe I have to lead from the front. I'm like, once you lift more than me, once you're bigger than me, once you're not that, but I'm just like, once you've held shape for as long as me, you're schooled enough, you can lead. But until then, it's like, let me steer. It's just like, for example, I wouldn't ask somebody who's making less money than me. Now, don't get me wrong, everybody can contribute, but would I let them drive the car? I'd be like, I'd rather somebody who's earning 10 times my money lead me. Yeah. It's the same thing as like, I find like, and this is me coming into your niche, but like male date coaches versus female date coaches. I'm like, that's an interesting topic, because that's like, Joe, are you asking the fish what it takes to catch it? I do believe there's good, but the thing is, some of the women intakes or insights, you'll probably be like, oh, there is something in that. I like that. But a lot of the time you'll be like, that wouldn't work if it was me.
It's a good point, because I think women are amazing coaches, therapists, amazing at everything. The only problem is, I think if we bring it down to a principle level, can I teach something that I've never done? Yeah. No, I can't. So can I, if I'm a woman, how am I going to teach a man to approach if I've never done an approach? How am I going to teach a man to have sex with a woman if I've never had sex with a woman? And even if a woman has sex with a woman, it's not the same at all. Because you've never felt this anxiety, like performance anxiety, pressure. What am I going to say? Gonna run out of things to say. How's she going to perceive me? Being all up in her head. Because women grow up abundant. If a woman does not have sex at any given day of the week, it's by choice. For us as men, it's like, most men have like, 5 to 7 intimate partners in their lives, and that's it. And Jordan Peterson said exactly what you said earlier. Being loyal, most people aren't loyal, they just don't have options, right? You're not loyal, you just don't have options. You know you can't do better. If you're actually presented with a shit ton of options and then you stick with the person you have, that is real loyalty. If you're actually capable of physical violence and you choose not to be violent, then you're a peaceful person.
I really rate that. I think it's that thought process is key, especially with like the loyalty thing as well. It's just one of the things I just noticed. I think that's why a lot of people end up cheating in marriages and stuff, is because they've never had the opportunity before, and they're like, oh, the romance, it's just another person who's giving you attention. That in that moment is better. The performance anxiety stuff's interesting too, because like I even get people who write to me about that, and I'm like, but I think it's like, it's interesting because you'll attract more with that, because like my honesty and stuff, I find it very interesting, like who you attract as well. Because like I would assume, because I'm quite like, I would say mannish, like I'm very like bro, I would attract a very feminine, but I actually tend to attract quite a independent masculine woman I would assume would almost be against my content. But I'm like, why are you attracted to me? Even though like your content may as well say, I don't like people like you. It's
Have you ever asked them?
Yeah, like I've had conversations like this, and I'm like, I don't even need to ask you. I'm like, I know why, because what you ask and what you actually are attracted to are two different things. It's the same as it's like me turning around going like, I like a really natural looking girl, and then being like, that girl with fake tits is really fit. Yeah. And I'm going out with her, and it's like, well, they're two different things. But it's just like, for me, I think like a lot of the time we can't realize why subconsciously it's like that. It's usually like, as you said, a need or something. It's like something going on the back end. Like, and it's yeah, I've asked before, but like it's asking always sometimes it doesn't give you the answer. You need the right communicator to give you it.
Yeah, or you need to tell a story and then check for reaction. So for example, one of the things that I say, the way you screen for compatibility on a date is not just by asking questions. You say something very polarizingly, and then you got to get a reaction on any sensitive subject. You express a strong opinion, and then she'll love you or she'll hate you for it. That's it. I always say after an hour and a half on a date with you, she should love you or hate you. If it's kind of like lukewarm in between, we didn't communicate polarizingly. Now, for example, I was on a call with the clients yesterday. One of the clients, he's a finance bro from London, right? And he's in Australia right now. Amazing guy. He says, David, I don't know, these 2 dates I went on, I don't know, they just didn't hook. I was like, what was the most polarizing thing you said in an hour and a half on a date with her? Well, Australians don't really eat fish and chips. Are you fucking kidding me? That's the most polarizing thing you said, and then you wonder why they don't get attracted?
What would you say is like if I was on a date, like you can feed me a line, like because like say I was on one a couple of weeks ago, right? And like good connection, good chemistry, but like I wouldn't almost like, I do believe in the qualifying the person. Like I do spend a lot of time doing that, because I think I'm quite confident on a date, and I'll take your advice in this. I'm fine with a date, but like I would qualify on it because I'm confident with her, but I wouldn't be like, I'm trying to dig with traits, but it's like a polarizing question, something I would never think about. I would come across maybe just naturally.
Yeah.
But like, what would you say? Like, I'm very
So I'll try to not be too politically correct, but I'll give you one, right? So if I was on a date with a girl, right? Or I would do this during an approach, like 2 minutes into the approach of a cold approach, I would say this, for example. Have you ever been to Germany? She'd go, yeah, I've been to Berlin. I don't like Berlin. Why? Well, look, 6 months ago I was in Berlin. I saw a girl, she was dancing like this. no problem. But her armpit hair was so long I could have flossed with it. I don't like that shit. You know? I would say something like that. And then you're going to get one of two reactions, right? And I'm not here to dictate how people should live their lives. Everybody, I'm individual happiness. I'm just saying for me. And then she's either going to really laugh, or she'll be like, why? What's wrong with that? Do women have to shave? Are you going to tell women that they should shave? No, I'm not. I'm just saying what I prefer. And that's a very polarizing thing to say.
Yeah, but that also, like, the people who answer that for me personally are like, women shouldn't shave and this and that. Like, you're not somebody I want. Straight away, that's not the person I'm attracted to. That's too strong feminist for me. And I'm like, holy sweet Christ, you're gonna have hairy legs. That's not attractive to me. So like, that's actually really good. Like, I don't know how I'll bring that into play.
So it's not about the line, but it's about what is it that you actually believe. What are like everything that's the most controversial shit that I wouldn't talk about here is the shit that I would talk about on a date. Like your most not just for the sake of provoking, but to see whether this subject that's linked to some of the values we have, and I want to see if our values are in common. Do we both believe in freedom of speech, for example? And I'm not making the date an interview. The date has to be 80% fun and playful and romantic. Fun. But that is fun. That is so much fun. I say the most, when I sent you that voice message the other day and I was with a client, the shit that I was saying was, I'll tell you off camera, was the most ridiculous shit. And you say, I could never say this to a woman. They love it. They get so excited if you don't have filters, because every fucking cuck that walks up to them is like, well, nice to meet you. Good evening. Oh, you happen to be an engineer. That's fucking boring as shit.
Yeah. I've heard that where like I've heard people say, like, for example, I went up and asked like a question, like posing a question to them, like about something that's like sexual or something that is like, what do you think about this person? And that's a very controversial person. Straight to the bat. Like if you're in the States, it's like walking up to a woman and going, what do you think of Donald Trump? You're getting one or two.
You're going to get one of them reactions.
One or two answers. And that probably tells you the sort of person you're dealing with.
Exactly.
Like, I find it, like, I don't know if you watched the election thing, we're not getting into that, but like he was like playing tunes, dancing with his like speech in the other day. And like, I was like, I just find that funny. I don't take it super serious, but like it's that also divides your audience straight away. So no, I like that. That's different.
We're not going to get into the whole subject, but I was with the client, right? And by the way, he has a PhD in AI and he works for one of the biggest banks in America. Most of the stuff we do is online, but we sometimes do some in-person work where I help them overcome their insecurities approach. So we were in Temple Bar. We were in Temple Bar, right? And so there's this group of 5 women. I asked them, do you want to go do the approach or do you want to watch me? Okay, cool. So I'll go do the approach. I walk in and I don't know. I was just entertaining myself, right? Don't bring up politics. I was just like, who are you guys going to vote for? Right? And then they go, who would you vote for? And I say who I would vote for if I was in the States, right? And then you can see a different reaction because this was a group of 5 girls, right? And they weren't on the same page. So they were trying to like avoid the subject. And you could I was sharing some really controversial shit and you could see 2 of them reacting being like this and 3 of them like, fuck that guy. It immediately separated the group. Now, what was interesting then is they obviously didn't want to have an argument in front of each other because they're on a girls trip. So I was like, okay, well, let's change subject and we'll leave that because I don't want to fuck up their girl trip for them. But you can see how it, even within a group like that, you can get 2 people like, oh yeah, okay, well, you're going to be more my person then, huh?
Interesting. Yeah. I find that there's so many complexities to a conversation. Because it's like social skills, but you're not taught it. Like it's like, and as you said, like automatically it's like, oh, what do you do? It's like, what's this? Oh, it's fun.
We started asking questions because we ran out of things to say. But that's what we're told. We're like, just ask questions. No, what you want to do is you want to do storytelling. And so what you want to do over the course of a date, you want to build attraction and you want to build comfort and trust. These are 2 things. Masculine energy, feminine energy. Trust, connection, comfort, and value and attractiveness. Most men, they're very good at making women feel comfortable. Like they overinvest. They're really nice all the time. And that's good. That builds trust and comfort, but it reduces attraction. So they end up being their gay best friend. Oh, he's just my friend. And they end up in the friend zone. Now, on the other hand, if we have a lot of attractions, for example, you post a picture on Instagram with 2 women from a wedding, right? You're like, oh, that builds your attraction because you're like, okay, you're desired by other women, but it lowers trust a little bit. But it's much easier to have more attraction and value and then bring up trust later. We can always recalibrate that. But most men lack that attractive element. But with storytelling, we can do both. Because if I tell a story, then I can include elements of both. Elements that boost my status as well that build trust and comfort. So for example, if I talk about my mother and I do that in a very authentic way, that tends to build trust and comfort and connection. Then I can include other elements that build more my status.
Yeah, I found stuff like that. Not meaning to, but now that you mention it, stuff like where, for example, if I talk about family and like I'm back home to see family, you've already said like back home, so where do you live?
Yeah.
And then they'll ask that and it leads on to this. Or I talk about like my little dog and it brings up like a sense of like, if they find out something that
It's
I'm like,
caring. Oh, you must be caring. Yeah.
once I find like it's definitely dials, because I've noticed that whenever I've had a conversation and say they didn't know I had a massive following and it comes up, I'll almost downplay it and be like, oh, but I still live with my little dog. And then they're like, oh, it brings like I can feel like you're trying to turn dials, because it goes one or the other way.
Yeah.
Because as much as people will say like, whenever you say something like that, it's like, oh fuck, what the fuck's going on with this person? So
We don't want to brag, right? Because bragging, a lot of guys, they're trying to, it's such a turn off. It seems so try hard, right? Whenever, and it's funny when men are trying to do that with men, as men are trying to flex on each other all the time as well, right? And it's such a turn off because there's not a person in the world that we like because he or she bragged.
exactly,
Right?
it needs to like flow smoothly. Like that's why like it's tricky, because if you are messaging somebody through DM, for example, like they're getting a idea of who you are through whatever you posted over the last 3 years, because they're going to check it out, your stories, whatever it is, even if you're not a content creator, just what you have on grid. Versus Cold Approach, it's like, this is me, whatever I'm saying is just it.
Creates a story in their mind of who you are. Exactly.
Yeah, so you're getting a blank sheet, which is a good thing as well. And I do think the odds of that as well, whatever it comes down to, is like, there's such a big difference in walking over to a woman and having a conversation, because immediately, like I think most men assume, maybe I'm completely wrong, that women are getting talked to all the time. Like they're constantly getting chat up to. Now, I don't know, you're probably better to lead in that, but I assume it's the opposite. I assume most men are absolutely shitting the bags to go speak to the woman. Like the better looking a woman is in my eyes, if I'm intimidated to talk to you, I fucking know damn right most men are intimidated to talk to you. And that's when I usually notice. But it's usually like, it's like easing in. For me, it's just that conversation of it. I think that's a very interesting one. There definitely is that case of like, unless you're in the States, I don't think you would see as much of it. It's definitely not in Europe, like definitely not in the UK, where like you just see men beeline for a female as soon as they see them in the States.
Oh, in Ireland and the UK, not a lot. No, definitely.
I feel like the women would be more standoffish though, whereas in the States, they can be a bit more like open.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and even in Spain, it's very different also, right? So it varies even within Europe and in the US and in Latin America. Fernanda tells me this, I've never been, but she says in Brazil, she has to go into hiding because the guys are like, whoa, way too forward, almost not calibrated enough. Right. So whereas here people, they don't approach at all. So, but you are right. Women don't get approached as much as people think, for sure. But they still get approached. Now, when we do it, we do need to stand out. But you can even just stand out by being sober. For example, like I always tell people, when you go out and do approaches, don't drink. You're not allowed. Like guys who are in my program, they're not allowed to drink when they go out to do approaches.
Interesting. Because that's the first thing I would think is like, have one to settle in.
Exactly,
nerves.
just one.
That is what people always say.
I know,
though.
but the problem with that is though, then you know that you need that neurotoxin for that. You know, I'm not here to have like an ethical discussion on alcohol. I'm just saying if you need it for the confidence, because then you know you need one. I would imagine you have to have a pint anytime before you go to the gym.
No, that's ridiculous.
I know it doesn't even make sense, but like imagine you had it doesn't, because it neurologically doesn't make sense. But if you had,
but I would have a cup of coffee or something. Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, well, with this is the problem is people do they really only have one? Then that's one. They usually have more. You know.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, me as a person, I as a man, want to be able to do whatever the fuck I want to do without depending on any substance.
I find for me personally, like I think if you were like me, we're gonna go out and do approaches. It's like that anxiety does raise, but like it's like, but if you asked, like if we were in the middle of the street, I would naturally, and we were having a conversation with a female, like I would just naturally, and I'd be like, I could turn around and be like, oh, actually, I'm getting connection here. Like I could feel it. Whereas whenever you start to be like, it's yes or no from the other person, I think you start to put yourself in this place where like you're asking for rejection. Versus sometimes it's nice if you're like, it's just like not free flowing, but it doesn't happen by chance. Like you still have to be like quite confident. Like I would like, I don't know if you've heard like that Russell Brand thing of like flirt with the world, but like I notice sometimes like having a conversation with like the person who's serving me somewhere, or I'm in a shop, or just you happen to bump into somebody. Like I always love, like I don't mean to do it, but like if you ever walk and you like both go the same way, I'll do it a couple times then. Yeah. And like by their reaction, they'll laugh, and then you can have a conversation for a couple minutes. And it's such a ease
And
versus...
that's a good point. The problem is if we rely on these situations, we cut out 95% of opportunities. Because 95% of the time, if we see somebody on the other side of the street in front of a Tesco and we're not there, there's not that excuse, that socially acceptable excuse. I will have to walk over and be like, excuse me 2 seconds, I saw you. You're really cute. I had to come and say hi. I know this probably isn't the done thing around here, but I probably would have regretted for 30 seconds. Hi, I'm David. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And that scares the shit out of us. But when we're able to do that, it's the greatest fucking high in the world, at least for me, right? And for men, I think in general as well, to experience that. Jordan Peterson says you can't get the goal without the dragon because we're so scared of doing that. When we do it, it's the best shit in the whole world. And then we talk, and sometimes we're gonna get 1 or 2 out of 10 rejections are gonna be brutally harsh, right? They're gonna be like, yeah, or like fuck off, ginger. I've heard it all, right? Like really brutal. But most of them, even if they reject you, they're still nice about it. I would say 80% of the rejections you get 90, they're still gonna be nice or polite. Some are even, I remember in Dubai, I was with a friend, I ran out of blah blah, and I went down the stairs, I approached somebody, and she goes, well, look, actually I have a husband, but fucking awesome that you came over, that made my night, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a compliment. Yeah. Like, that's the way you need to look at it. Like, it's one of them things, but I suppose it depends on how often is she, I think it tells a lot. Like, you have to stop looking at it like it's on you, because if I had been approached 10 times that night out and I have a boyfriend, I'm a female, you're like, leave me the fuck alone. So like, understandable. It's like if 15 people come up and take a photo of you back to back, it's like, this wasn't as fun as the first one. No, it's like, so
and you're right. You have to have empathy. You have to have empathy for women there as well.
It's having it in both sides, whereas that's the tricky thing, because you'll have to have it for her when she is none for you.
Yeah.
Because that's the case. Plus, you don't know what's going on. Like,
you never know. You know nothing. Maybe your cat just died that day.
Exactly.
You know? So, and that is actually the ultimate frame to deal with rejection that I tell guys is actually compassion. Now, in the beginning, that won't help you. It is an advanced frame, because in the beginning, when you're shitting yourself, compassion won't help you. You're just trying to survive. Your ego is just trying to survive. But eventually, what you want to do is, imagine this was your daughter, okay? Or your sister. And she gets approached by somebody that she doesn't like. Well, ultimately how I came up with that idea was, it was Pride Month and I was in Spa, right? Some gay dude grabs my ass and I was in a bit of a grumpy mood, so I got angry. I didn't say anything. I was like, usually I would just be like, hey bro, don't. But I just didn't say anything, right? But I was just, internally, I was just angry for 10, 15 minutes because I'm having a grumpy day. I was like, don't do that shit. And then I was like, oh wow. Wait, this is what women go through. And whether it's a physical, like something as bad as just grabbing somebody physically, but I was like, oh, do I not want women to be able to say no whenever they feel slightly uncomfortable? And whether it's this or whether it's just an approach, if it was my daughter or my sister or my mother and anybody talks to them, obviously I want her to be able to tell that guy to fuck off in a nice, or at least in a nice way, but like get her space. And when you realize, oh, I want her to have the freedom to be comfortable, then I realize it has nothing to do with me.
Do you find, this is going to be an interesting question, this is going to go against probably what I used to believe. Do you feel like men hide behind, I'll build my body and this will build my confidence, I'll do this, because they do overlap. Like if you're in good shape, it not only is more attractive, but like it does build your confidence, but it's different confidence.
You're right. So it's both, right? I think it's, on the one hand, yes, men do that. They think, I'm going to get the six pack, I'm going to get the body, and then they realize it doesn't work like that. Right? It doesn't automatically get them a good relationship. At the same time, though, I absolutely believe every man should get in shape and go to the gym, because what happens is your overall levels of confidence go so much higher.
Yeah.
So it's
self-confidence versus like female confidence, if that makes sense. Like
it's context-specific confidence.
Yeah.
So in order to be good at dating, you need the skill at dating. Right?
Confidence is competence.
So I always say there's 4 sources for confidence. The first one is competence. The second one is our mental and emotional state, right? That can change within any given moment. And gym has a huge impact on that. The third one is osmosis, spending time with men or other people that are confident, has mass. And then the last one is beliefs, right? But we still need the competence within women that we won't get from the gym. But I absolutely think that take the same guy, same skill set, same experience with women. One goes to the gym regularly, the other one doesn't. That guy's confidence, his energy is going to be better. Our energy is not the same if we don't work out. I would argue if you don't work out for a week, like same for me.
Self-worth.
Self-worth, and it's neurological, right? Like testosterone goes up. So I absolutely think any man should go to the gym. And also just physically, it's more appealing for most women. That's absolutely true if you're in good shape. There's no reason not to be in good shape. But like they do that where they're like, yeah, and then there's too many cases of guys who are not in shape, who are charismatic as fuck, who've gotten amazing relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you've ever seen this a guy like that not in shape? How the fuck did he get hurt? How did this happen? Right? You're like this, especially if you go to the gym and you work with him. This is not meant to be, you know. And then it's no, he's charismatic. He's got the gift of gab. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's two different skill sets. They overlap. So like obviously, if you get somebody who just does approaches, but is Joe not looking after any other area in their life, they might be able to do the approach, but then they're probably going to struggle with like...
You can't even fuck her well, probably.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, like, you're not going to be able to keep it because you're not really a man in other areas of your life. Whereas you'll have loads of men who are like, I am the man, I gym, I train, but you're like, have a conversation, you're like... It's like, bro, like... Because I always turn around to people like, oh, Joe, heartbreak goes one or two ways. It makes or breaks you. I'm like, hit the gym, get ripped. But like, I even noticed, like, I went through a breakup like 2 years ago and I took time away because I had this, like, I've never had a problem with like women in that area. And I was like, I could just use some time to actually be used to being like not dating and looking out for me. But I noticed the longer I took out, the more I was like, it got comfy.
Yeah.
Like I think like 6-7 months went by, maybe a little bit longer. And I was like, not approaching. I was having conversations, but I was like, I'm just not going for anything. I was like, I'm still work. And you start to fall in that like comfort, and then like I line things up again. But I was like, that's very easy to fall into for like long time periods if you're not careful. Because like, you maybe work in an office or you don't, or you work from home, or you're not, like, where are you getting the chance to approach one if you're not drinking now too? Like, unless, as you said, like, you go out and don't drink, but like, where are you sending your clients to cold approach? Probably bars.
Bars, but also during the day. So they
during
can
the day,
go,
I think is the best one.
I agree. I think during the day is absolutely the best. So I don't recommend nightclubs necessarily.
No, terribly.
Because 8 out of 10 people you're going to meet in nightclubs are not going to be what you're looking for, just by default. That just is.
I'm looking at gym girls. So like, it's like, it's funny because people will be like, where are all the gym girls at when they're not in the gym? Because we're not supposed to approach them in the gym.
Yeah, they're home, or they're like walking during the day.
Whereas I'm like, yeah, when somebody asks me that, I'm like, the best time is just in between a set, like just have a normal conversation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot is said about this. It's like the same as when men slide in DMs, right? If I slide into your DMs and I say something like semi-flirty, I'll know by your reply. Like if a girl I fancy slides into my DMs, right? And I think she's good looking, right? Straight off. The reply I give her versus somebody I'm not interested in is going to be different. And she should be able to, it should sense, it's the same as like if you're approaching, so you know straight away by like the smile of the person, or they're happy or they're not. You like, I know, like whenever you do an approach, I'm sure you know if in like the first 5 seconds, like this is going pear-shaped or this is going to go okay by the reaction. No,
sometimes, oftentimes yes.
Unless you can steer it around.
Well, sometimes not. I've done plenty of approaches where in the beginning she looks at me like, who the fuck is this guy? For example, she's with her mother, she's with her father.
That's intense.
Yeah,
like
approaching
with parents.
Yeah, or like with anybody, and she's a little bit like standoffish just because of the situation, right? And sometimes they're also like, if you talk to somebody like during the day, like you're standing outside of a Starbucks, she's like, is he trying to sell me something? Is he trying to get me to convert to Scientology? Is he a Jehovah's Witness? She doesn't know who I am yet. So it might take her a couple of minutes to figure a lot of positive things out about me while I communicate. You have to be able to differentiate yourself. Sometimes you know immediately and it's immediately hooked, but oftentimes also not, because they don't know that you're not the same idiot that already introduced himself to her 17 times that night, you know? So sometimes it does take a bit more time. But what you were saying about the comfort zone earlier is so true. And in the gym as well, probably. You can get used to not training. Because I get so many of my clients all of my clients, I tell them, go to the gym. I send them. I had one earlier.
You just line them up to me now.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, go. But it's so important because it's such a perfect symbiotic relationship. What you were saying I want to give you this one. The way I tell guys to approach in the gym, there's 2 ways, right? So there's the indirect way. I call that the gym strategy. Tell me what you think of this.
Here, baby. Yeah. I had the hump like, or do hip thrusts and you're just looking at her.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
Oh my goodness. 1 out of 100 is going to take that serious. So basically what you do is, let's say she's next to you, and then you can just ask her, not in the middle, don't interrupt her in the middle of a set, obviously, but you can just say, excuse me 2 seconds, would you mind taking a quick video for my Instagram story? Then she takes a quick video. Trust me, this shit's proven. I've done this, it works, right? And then she takes the video, and then you start some conversation and you see if she's into it. Some are just going to hand you the phone back straight away and they want to go back to exercising. Cool, no problem. And some are really open to talking. And then you just exchange Instagram immediately. And then you just, in the DM, you just go, was fun meeting you. Let's meet for drinks one of these days. Done deal.
That's very quick too.
Now, the thing with that is though, you don't want to get a bad reputation in the gym, right? So what I say to guys is, if you do that, the next time you do it, you have to do it with a dude. You have to ask a guy. and then you ask a girl. You
I
ask
think that builds not reps too, but I think conversation, like it's like for me, like I noticed after I took that gap, like 6-7 months, like just having conversation with even women like I didn't find attractive.
Yeah.
It's like, can you actually like make her smile, even though it's like something you're not like it's just, can you have a bit of flirt, a bit of fun, and it's like, all right, well that was easy, and you build up levels. Whereas like
Talk to everybody.
you do notice like a lot of people go from 0 to 100. Do you do that with them where they're not approaching all? So it's like,
Oh no, I tell them to like go step by step. You have to talk to people. Most people have to talk to people in the beginning that they don't find that attractive, and you have to build it, progressive desensitization. So on the one hand, you do that by increasing the difficulty of the approach. For example, you indirect first, asking for directions, blah blah, and then you also just there's a person in the
Interesting.
world. There's a person in the world who's just so unattractive that you'd have zero approach anxiety in your subjective point of view, and then you just go one level higher on a scale of 0 to 10, a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. Yeah.
I'm such a not a thinker, which is probably a terrible thing. It's like I would automatically just like, if I need directions, I would just turn to the nearest person. If it's a woman or a boy, I would be like, right, where's this? Like I wouldn't be like, who do I go to? It's just like if we're out and about and like it happens to be who's sitting beside me, it's like, what's going on? What's happening here? Or where's the best place to eat? It's not like I just don't think. So it's quite an
No, but
interesting.
that's awesome. But that's awesome. A lot of men, they do get stuck overthinking.
I definitely used to. I think it's just
a habit.
yeah, it's definitely just reps. Like I think
Yes.
it's a case of, for me personally, the thing that got me out of it is when the camera goes on me, like I have no problem. Like earlier I was chatting, there was 3 females beside me like cheering it on, and then I was roaring, and then I'm having a crack with her, and I've got my arm around her. Whereas like if you were like me, go over to that person and put your arm around her, you'd be like, fuck, this is gonna be like a weird one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's out of context, it's not in the flow. So yeah, a lot of guys, they get into that, and what I say to them is talk to people everywhere. Talk to people, because the way we feel at home in the world is through people. And Andrew Huberman talks about this. We don't just need deep and meaningful connections. We also, for happiness, need superficial little encounters with the security guy, with the Uber driver, with the guy in the restaurant, with the lady here. If you just talk to everybody, you can't expect yourself to be able to do an amazing approach if you haven't spoken to anybody in the last 2 hours. So if you get into flow, I realize that if you get into flow, there's shit that's why you can't just do, I just did 2 approaches last week. That's fucking nothing. You have no idea the level of flow you can get into when you've done a lot of reps.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing I've definitely noticed before is like, there's days where like you can trick yourself and say, I'm feeling off. But there is times where like, I'm like, oh, I could do it. Like after a gym session, it's went really well. My headspace is good. Like I have no issue with it. But there is days where you're like very good looking. You're like, I feel like my mojo, you can feel like you're not as in flow. And that's probably what that is. Yeah. It's probably like you haven't been as like fluid. Like
It's
really,
momentum. It's micro momentum.
yeah. And I would say if you're quite like, if you are working or it's like you're flicking mode versus you had a full day off and you had a full day with your friends. And that's probably why one of the reasons why conversation flows better in the pub, because you're already having conversation.
Yeah.
You're like almost warming up versus like you finish work at 5, you see her across the bus stop. It's like you've just been in like zoned in, and now you're trying to like, what's a normal conversation? Whereas your mind's already on work still. Yeah. Versus that idea of like, right, I'm going out to fun. What am I thinking about? And it is that sign of thing. Like for a long time in my office, I had a sign and it was like switch, and it just meant switch mode. So it meant like as soon as I leave this, I'm no longer in like, because I would be quite like fucking military. Like I'm quite like stern, like with clients and stuff. Like I'm like, I don't take no shit. Like I'm just like this. I'm like, this standard is not what we do. But whenever I leave the room, if I don't reset myself almost, I notice I bring that into like, even a relationship conversation, I'd be like being too direct to the point where it's like, right, calm the fuck down. There's no empathy. Yeah. It's like Kobe Bryant, like, do you ever see the Black Mamba? It's like, I'm Kobe everywhere, but like on the court, like I'm Mamba. It's like changing zone and gears. Whereas I think a lot of people are like, I'm not good enough. Whereas it's like, what's going to build you up to it? Yeah. That's an interesting take, because even for somebody like, I would consider myself relatively solid, but like that's an interesting failure. But there's so many cop-outs. You could say that and be like, I'm warming up.
Yeah.
Do you notice it, like for a lot of the men you coach in particular, I'm very, it's a reps game. It's just go out, get 100 no's, and then you'll get better.
Yeah. A lot of it is there's a numbers component to it, and there's a skill set component.
Yeah, because you can't just keep getting no's.
Exactly, you can't just keep getting no's. And there's also this
review, reflect.
This storytelling, review, reflect. You see what you did here, that was not calibrated. There's definitely a skill set component to it, but there's also a numbers game component to it, because you need to desensitize yourself to it. So one of the best psychologists, Gunter Schmidt, he literally said to me in person, he sometimes does this with patients, where he says, go out and get 9 rejections this weekend. You're not allowed to get a number. You're not allowed. That immediately decreases the pressure to 0. Because he says, whether we feel pressure or not, if you hold up a barometer, the air pressure did not change. It is literally the words we utter in our own head that create pressure within ourselves. And if we decrease the expectation to 0, pressure goes down and we're able to perform better, and counterintuitively, the probability that we're going to have a successful outcome in an interaction goes higher. So if we just focus on connecting, on bringing fun and positivity, it's going to go a lot better. But most guys are like, yes, so where are you from? What do you do? To come here often? Can I buy you a drink? Yeah, thank you. Now fuck off, right? But it's the same with the gym, right? Because a lot of people, I find this, that when I go, it's almost easier for me to go every day than 3 times a week in terms of flow.
Yes, yes.
Isn't that true? Isn't that interesting?
But I think that's the same for everything though. It's like I went to Wim Hof for like an ice event.
Oh, you went in person, yeah?
I went in person. It was hard. It was a bit insane.
Yeah, it must have been good though, right?
Yeah, it was unreal. But like I done like 230 days, 100. It was somewhere around the 200 mark. It could have been like 220, something I forget. But I done that many days in a row. Went to Wim Hof, and when I came back, like I took like a month break, and like
of the ice bath, or
of the ice bath. I just like I'll take cold showers, and then like a month turned into. Whereas like I didn't even think, like I was getting up at like 4:30, going in the bath, like it was just reflex. And I feel like that's the same with like everything. It's just habit, routine. It's like building yourself. Like, right, I find her attractive. I'm gonna go and have a conversation, and the more you have, I think that the idea of like, especially like, I know a lot of people. It's like I need to get the IG, I need to get that, and I see some people go over and go, oh, I talked to her, I got her IG, but it's like you literally went over, introduced, and got IG. Like that's not going fucking. It's not going to go anywhere near as well as if you can actually hold a conversation.
Yeah, if you talk to her for 20-30 minutes.
Yeah, because if I went over to you or somebody and you're semi decent looking, that's okay, but like it's not the same. I do think flow is like such a vital part, and most people don't take that in a sense. It's like me with my content. I'm sure you get that with filming. People get that with work, even conversation, even sex. Like I'm sure like there's sometimes where the sex just is like the connection with the other half. You're like, this is on money, and then there's other times where you're like, what the fuck's happening here? It's like this is like your mind's away and you're thinking about something else, and it's just like there's no flow, but there's been no warm up, there's no consecutive. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like if you're having sex every day for a month, like it's where this goes, you know how to unclip. You're just flow's definitely a thing. I think with that as well.
How do you help people get in the flow with exercise?
With the gym, see for me personally, the first thing I look at is I always think about what it costs. So I'm like, don't worry about what you're going to get out of it. I think about what it's going to cost you in the long run. So I'm always just like, usually like I get quite deep internally into people. Like usually when people are coming to me, they're like this or that. And I'm quite high energy, but it's like, if you don't go to the gym, like, right, you don't go, but I'm like, whenever you don't feel confident, you're not looking good, you know, your ex is going to turn around and be like, oh, I'm glad I left him. Like, go for pain. For me personally, I don't think it's good to run on that forever, but usually when people are first starting off, I find that pain's the main motivator. Like it's the main driver initially, because it's like that will push you forward. And then there comes a time point where like your flow state, how you feel and your energy and how you're showing up, then that's the motivating factor. Like for you, it's not like when you show up with a client for approach, it's not like I need this to work because like I need a roof for me. It's like I'm in flow, I enjoy this, it lights me up, this fills me. And it's like using light versus dark energy, whereas I feel like you use a little bit of dark to get started and then I know when to flick. So for flow state for a person, I'm like, you need to make it enjoyable too. I'm like, what's your favorite playlist? What foods do you like before and after? Make it enjoyable. It's like, for you, if you're like, Joe, we're going to go cold approach here. It's like, but after we'll grab food here. And it's like, but you're not allowed that to eat. You're not allowed to eat that until you do 5 approaches. It's like the approaches go quicker and tell them not to eat all day. It's like, you're making it more reward. So like I turn around and I'll be like, look, you can be here 6 months or you can be here a year. It's down to you what you want. Like I'm happy, I get paid either way, but I'm like, and I also just, I really talk about like how you want to feel and be in 6 months. Like who do you want to be known as? Like what, and it's not to other people, it's to yourself. I feel like that's the main issue. It's not like, I have this weird thing where like, when we done the Wim Hof thing, like I remember the instructor whispered me, or we were like doing in and out of ice baths. And like, she was like, you can get out any time. Like Joe, like cause there was 8 of us in ice bath and we were getting in and out for 5 minutes a pop. And the last one was, she goes, till you can't take no more. And I was like, there's no way she lets us like die in here in an hour. I was like, it's a test. And you could feel people get out. You could hear her say, look, you're allowed to get out. It's not, you're still going to pass through the course and stuff. And I remember her saying in my ear, and like my automatic reaction as a lunatic was like, I'd rather die. Like I'd rather, like my identity is on like I thrive off like, I don't quit. Like I thrive in that. Like I've had issues where people have said like, it's too much. But like, I'm like, that's why I want to know as myself. Like I didn't give up. I'd rather like I remember at the end of it, like my hand spazzed up and I took like a bit of hypo, and like I was like, I'm happy with that, because I'm like, if my hand's fucked, I'd be like, deep down, I'm like, I fucking respond to that, because otherwise you're not backing yourself up, you're lying to yourself. And I think them small promises are what builds you. It's like every time you hit snooze in the morning, your day is fucked. You started with an L. You started hitting snooze, you wake up, you've already took a loss. You've already lied to yourself. I'm going to get up at this time. You watched Netflix, you stepped to one, you masturbated, and you're not going to masturbate tomorrow. Yeah, dead on. And then you get up and you snooze. And all them little things for me is what builds my confidence. And I'm like, if I can do all that, talking to that girl's not bad. Or Joe, taking the shot with whatever you're doing, I'm like, it's not bad, because I back myself on all these. And I have the proof that like I follow through. And that for me is key. Like I remember like even during like relationship breaks down and stuff, I'd be like, no, like I wouldn't do this. And like actually going away and doing the work to the stage where you're like, fuck, I've went to a mindset coach, I went to a therapist, I've done this, I've done that, I've worked on this. I'm being like, even if this doesn't work, I'm like, I done everything I could. And that for me is all you want. Whereas I think a lot of people, even with like you ask people what they regret, it's going to be small things like, I'm by myself because I didn't have the balls to approach a woman. I'm not in the shape I want because I didn't have the self-discipline to do it. But I feel like they all overlap. You usually notice that, and sorry, I don't mean to go on tangent, but you usually notice there's men who just like have a lot of it clicked. And I feel like it's from just them small steps, like go to sleep on time, get up on time, make your bed, eat a decent diet. And then you like, once you do all them, then like an approach isn't as big as if you've been sitting in your bedroom playing video games and working 9 to 5 and wanking. It's like approach is like, holy fuck. Whereas like if you get somebody like me coming on board, you're like, this is a piece, but I have a lot of pieces in place here. It's like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas I feel like once you get piece by piece, you build up. So yeah, the bit of a tangent there. What do you think on that?
No, I like that. And I think it's the whole self-esteem thing. Self-esteem comes from doing the difficult thing.
Yeah.
If we do the thing that we don't want to do, that brings dopamine up. That strengthens the relationship we have with ourselves.
Do you find the men that usually come to you place their self-esteem, not self-esteem, it's the other person's giving you your self-esteem? So like, for example, my self-esteem doesn't come from me. It comes from acceptance from the female taking me on. Right. Versus like, regardless of like, it's always going to hurt your worth if you go over that beautiful.
Of course, it's always going to be a little.
Yeah. But like you, depending on how much backing you have, it's like, well, I have these in order, Joe. You can flip the script. That metal work you've done in yourself, can you flip the script? Or are you like, oh, I'm defeated? Yeah. Like you're bound to notice that. Whereas
a lot of the guys who come to me in the beginning, they're entirely dependent on the validation of her. If she gives me the number, I feel great about myself. If I don't, I feel terrible about myself.
I think that's normal though. I feel like if you turn to me now and goes, yeah.
Until you've trained it the opposite. I've literally gotten to a point, and men can do that, where you get a rejection, where you feel laughter within yourself. That's not a joke. It's not psychopathic. You can actually train that because you laugh because you find something funny. Yeah. It is, you can really get to a point where you have zero approach anxiety and zero pain of rejection. It's real. You can get to that point. Now, if you then don't do anything for a month, it comes back.
Interesting.
It comes back. But you can actually get to a point where you feel zero pain at rejection and zero pain at approach anxiety. Now, the good thing is that's not necessary. You can get to a point where you still have some approach anxiety and we can then act despite of it. It's just the fear can't be too high. You know how in modern pop psychology they say, just ignore your emotions, do the right thing anyway. Well, that works if the emotions aren't bad enough. We've all had emotions that were so bad that we couldn't act, right? Where is it that we feel a little depressed or down or angry or sad or fearful? If the negative emotion is so overwhelmingly strong, then we can't do the business task that we need to do. Then we can't do the approach if the emotion is so strong. So Tony Robbins says, it's not ignoring your emotions, it's I will make myself feel like it. Which means you change. That's why the gym is so important, because it changes your biochemistry, and then you will feel like doing the right thing because more testosterone makes effort feel good. So I will make myself feel like it. So there's Gunnar Schmidt calls it hypnosystemic therapy. There's the hypno, the internal component, and there's the systemic component. It's easier for men to do an approach when they have their friends with them because they have the social permission from their friends, and if they fail, they can go back to them. It's not so bad. So you need the systemic. It's like James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. If the chocolate bar is at home, I'm going to eat it. If it's not at home, I'm not going to eat it. So there's a systemic component to discipline as well as an internal component. Yeah. So coming back to what you were saying is absolutely true. You need to start basing your self-esteem on the inside, but that's not common.
It's not common. No, and it takes practice, but it manifests itself in action. So I will do the approach. Now, it only works up until at some point you need to get a fucking win from reality. At some point, objective reality needs to validate that what you're doing is right, because I can't just keep validating myself for 2 years and just keep getting rejected, but eventually I need to change my approach.
Yeah, skill.
But I need to completely base it on myself, as well as the feedback from a mentor or a friend, that what I'm doing is good and it works. Up until when you get the first win, when you start winning, you just have unlimited energy and you just keep winning forever.
I was just about to say, you get that first win in any area and everything else flows. And I find it so interesting, because it's just like, it's such a different coaching world to me. And like, you don't hear about it. Like, you just don't, like, men will have a bit of conversation and they'll be like, just go over. But it's not like, if I was to go over, I would do this or I would do that, or they're like, men just are not like, as much as you're saying my friend give me feedback on that, it takes a really good friendship where there's no, like, you go over,
and he has to have the skill set. Most guys don't have the skill. Most guys are full of shit, because most guys, they stand there with a beard. They're like, even guys who do good, oftentimes they just do good because they're either like amazingly looking.
I was just about to say.
And the problem is then they end up getting pussy whipped in the relationship. That's something that I've seen a lot, because guys who are really, really good looking and who have status, if they haven't learned to set boundaries and to sustain attraction, oftentimes their relationship is shit. They can get the initial attraction, but the relationship later on isn't that great. So you need somebody who actually has, like, there's very few people who actually know what they're doing and why they're good at it. It's like, look what you did here. This comment that wasn't calibrated. So you didn't address our friend. You need the specific feedback. And it's a skill component. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Even like the point you're making about, like, you didn't address the friend. But that's like a conversation. Like, if I was to go over and you approach a female, or you even talk to a dude, right, and you don't include the friend, the conversation dies, because she senses my friend is left out.
Yeah, or the friend cock blocks you. Because why are you approaching her and not the friend in the first place? Because she's more attractive. That means that's happened before. So now the funny thing is, because you're always going to go for the one you find more attractive, 90% of society is going to agree with you. Therefore, she will always be the one who gets approached. And then the friend, who is objectively less or subjectively less attractive, will then sometimes cock block, because she's resentful, because she actually hates her friend for getting all of the attention in the first place. And she loves her, obviously, but she really dislikes the fact that she gets all of the validation. So if you include her and you're just a nice, good person from the beginning, that helps.
Do you feel like the right person to ask then? Because, for example, like, I would hire a lot of fitness Instagrammers and stuff. Like, they're technically not the right people to take dating advice off, because, like, they do well, women, but they don't do well because, like, they're good skill-wise. It's like, you're attractive.
They have insane status.
Yeah, which is not an easy trait. Like, I definitely think, don't get me wrong, I always done well even from a young age, but if you look at like why I done well, it's different throughout the time. Like, whenever I was like before I went into like a long-term relationship, it was because, like, if I thought you were like good looking, like, I was just straight over. And I remember walking over to the girl I had a long-term, and I'd be like, I came over, I don't know what I'm saying, but like, I just thought I'd come over. And I remember being like, that is such, I remember the conversation and being like, I just remember her laughing straight, but I was like, just being like, and I remember being like, so can this happen? I remember being like, can this happen or something? And like, I remember, like a response like this, but like, I was like, and I just remember then, I see straight away, as soon as we had a conversation, then it went back to flow, but it was just a case of like, I just had the balls to go over.
Yeah, and sometimes it's perfectly okay for the open to be shit. It's okay to be, so one of the principles is, it's okay for it to be awkward in the beginning. Embrace the awkward. It doesn't have to be smooth. But even if you're funny,
like, it's only awkward if you make it awkward. Like,
exactly.
It's like that. Like, if you bump into somebody and it's like, or like me and you go to shake hand, and that's happened to me, where like the handshake feels like there's an odd handshake or something, and I'd be like, do that again. Like, I'm just like immediately like, or if somebody hugs me and I'm like, that was a bad hug, I'm like, give me a prop, and it takes the awkwardness away.
Yes. Yeah.
Or if
100%.
I slur my words on camera and you're like, whereas if I'm like, oh, I can't speak, and it's all about the attitude then. So
100%.
It's probably lowering that pressure, but I feel like that comes with reps too.
100%, you're right. Like I say, there's no AW on the chart of elements. Awkwardness does not exist, 100%. But sometimes the open might be smooth. Sometimes it isn't smooth. And sometimes some of the best interactions that I've had, the approach, the initial open doesn't have to be smooth at all, because you can recalibrate 10 seconds after if you just keep oversharing, huh?
Yeah, and it's also like a sense of like, if you have a shit approach, but you're laughing and you automatically come across as like non-annoying. Like, you're entered. Like, I feel like for me personally, especially in the last like year since like I got back in, I've noticed the energy being the main thing, where people are like I can sense they want to be around you, because like what you're bringing to the conversation is like, oh, if you're even if you're just having a conversation, you're out with your friends and there's two women and you're in a fucking lift, and there's good conversation and one of them laugh, and like they're like, oh, yous are great and all, and then all of a sudden the next night yous are meeting them, and it's just like the energy yous have will attract people. Whereas I feel like a lot of people don't realize that that's a thing, and it sounds very like but even just like, are you smiling? Are you laughing? Are you having the fun? Or are you pure serious? You're on your phone, and it's just like.
Yeah, and you have amazing energy, and it comes across in your content, and I would say that's probably largely why a lot of people resonate with you, and people underestimate that component totally. Whether your energy is on this level or on this level, and like some people are
you have
more
to work
introverted.
on that. Like that's a skill.
It's a skill.
Do you notice that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and like gym, super important. Nutrition, sleep, all these things. But then it's also how much. Most men don't even speak with enough volume. That's one. Their voice is really low and shallow. They don't speak loud enough, because they're worried that people in the environment might hear them. So for example,
you would though if you're walking up going, look, I came over to say, like, I wouldn't know what way you tell the approach, but like that line earlier, look, I would come over and kick myself because I think you're cute. I don't think I could ever say that. I think I would actually die saying that. But a case of like, if you say that and she turns around and goes, get away from me, and there's 6 other people beside you, it's like, you think though that's the end of the world. Whereas the first thing I think in my head is I'm like, ballsy cunt.
Yeah,
First
exactly.
thing I think is I'm like, credit you. Like I would actually turn around and be like, bro, dub me up, like, because you took a shot. Like you shot
Yeah, but because you're a winner, and winners recognize winners. Winners recognize men who take action. But all these fucking pussies who've never done an approach in their life, they will judge. There's a really cool...
That's a lot of friends, isn't it, too, probably?
Yeah, because most men have the wrong friends. If your friends judge you for working on yourself, for getting a fitness coach, for getting help in any area, they're not the right friends. If your friends judge you for doing slightly unusual things, like going to a Wim Hof retreat, they're not the right friends for you.
Yeah, that's tricky though as well, because then you're changing not just for you, especially you're trying to change people's mindset, their internal dialogue, and like the back end of like what's reinforcing that through the friends. Because like for me, I noticed that a long time like ago, even with like the fitness and the business, and you're getting that like, this isn't going to work. Like what you're doing with content and fitness, like when are you going to get a real job? Or like, Joe, you're firefighting, like let's think towards that. And if you listen to that enough, you believe it without realizing it, versus people like, I love the conversation sometimes I have away and it's like, right, well, like, I don't like the idea of where you're 5 years, but they're like, I could see you doing this in 3 years. And like, fuck, that is very big. Like that is bigger than I ever imagined. It's like, that then builds you, even if you don't want to go there, it's like, fuck, you have faith in me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, same. Like, sometimes you need a business mentor who tells you, I think you can do this. And you're like, really? That's great. You need somebody who sees more potential in you than in yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's the qualifying part of the female as well, is like, if I'm on a date, like, I'm not qualifying to see, but I'm like, what trait do you have that I'm like, this has the potential? It's like straight away, the first thing you said there with the males is the self-development. That's the first thing I look at a female now. And it's so strange, because if you asked me 5 years ago, I'd be like, no, like I want an ass and I want a thin waist and I want her to be like, I want fill it, I want it. But now I'm like in a conversation where like 20 minutes in, yes, you're attractive, that's absolutely fantastic. But I'm like, is there any fucking working on yourself here? Because like, am I dealing with the same person now, and then you, in 10 years time, some shit's going on and I can't fucking cope with you? Because I'm just thinking, not long term, and there's fun and there's all that as well, but it's like, that's a key trait in like everything. Because like, if you're going to be a mother and you're going to be a girlfriend, it's going to require fucking work. Like everything is like, I assume, so I've never been like a longer than 5 years, but I assume like 1 to 2 years easy, 2 to 5 tough, and like 5 to 20, like, yeah, there's bliss, but that has to be hard work. So if you're in bed with an individual that like you don't see yourself as like wanting as your family, then why are you there? Now that's probably qualifying too early. That's more like down the line, versus like that shift as well. I find it very interesting. One thing you said, and I'll drop back to, is you develop all these skills, and then a man gets a woman and goes in a relationship with her. Do you feel like the skills fade then?
Depends on how they've been trained.
Interesting.
So if you learn to do the things properly in the beginning, that translates directly into the relation. There's separate skills that when it comes to the relationship of retaining attraction, but a lot of it is similar. So for example, Fernanda and I, 5 years into it now, when we go on date night, what's nice about the date night is not the fact that we exchange new information. She knows everything about me. She has access to my phone. I have access to her phone. Like we know everything about each other. There's zero secrets, like nothing, right? I'll tell you some stories later. Really nothing, right? And what makes the date night fun is me being silly, me being dazzling, me making her feel shit.
It's exactly the stuff that creates attraction in the beginning will also keep her attracted in the long term later on. There's that masculine polarization if you learn that. That's why it's almost better if guys have a bit of a hard time in the beginning with it, because then they learn it properly. Because I have friends who are tall and good looking and jacked and objectively have status who end up in bad relationships because they got the attraction easily, but they never learned the skill set of setting boundaries, communicating expectations, communicating your needs. Right? They never understood the social dynamics that were necessary to realize, okay, well, this increases attraction, this decreases attraction.
I definitely noticed that as well. Like I definitely learned parts of that during a relationship at time periods where it got tough or there's issues here, and you're like, I said this and this solved the problem, but I did notice like the sex drop off slightly, or this or you pick up, like for example, you could dial up and polarize and there could be an argument, but then you're like, for the next 2 months, it's really good sex, really good communication. You're like, that was almost worth that little bit of pain for the long run. And it's so interesting because there's so many layers to it all. And every woman and man is so different. I find that like, for me, I find my job a lot easier than yours personally, whereas I'm like, calories, macros, discipline. Yes, there is a mental battle, but most people are, to some extent, for me, motivated by the same things, put off by the same things, have the similar barriers and issues, and versus like, there's so many layers to what holds a person back.
Yeah.
I think it is just
True,
momentum too. Like,
no, you are right. At the same time, there are processes like progressive desensitization with the approaches, like dating app strategies that just always work. Now, then there is a lot of mindset, right? What do you think here? What is your limiting belief in this mindset? There's a lot of mindset when it comes to dating, right?
It has to be.
Women this, me this, blah, blah, blah here, right? But the cool thing is, once you actually get them the wins, the win itself of a successful date creates so much confidence, it kicks the winner effect, and it just completely unleashes new parts of the personality.
do you find most men, no, this isn't just talking, it has to be, for me, definitely at one stage it would have been like, I'm not good enough. And then they saying no would reinforce that, which you don't want to believe. That definitely would have been, for me, a long time ago, I'd say like that definitely would have been the thing. Like, that's the reason I was in the gym so hardcore, went down that whole route. I think that's the reason I wanted money, followers, all that was like, I'm not good enough. These are signs I am worthy. And I don't like the whole idea of where a therapist tells you that and then you buy into it. Like, I generally felt like that for a long time. And I would say that has to be an underpinning factor for a lot of men. So when I talk to them, it's that.
100%, absolutely. The good thing is our brain needs to prove not just the promises that were desired. You can break that with just one reference experiences to the contrary. You let a guy do X amount of approaches, he gets one number, he gets one good date, and that entire belief can collapse. The entire negative belief about yourself can collapse if you give him one win. Now, you can do that even without giving him the experience by doing coaching. Letting him ask, okay, so that's not true, but I remember a time when, right? Has this always been? The way you collapse a limiting belief is not with another belief, but it's with truth. Like, okay, so you're not deserving of love. Has anybody ever loved you without wanting anything? Well, there was this one auntie. Ah, okay, interesting. Right? But then it becomes, I'm very German in that way. I like making it practical, where what steps can we take that gets you the win, and then the win will reinforce it. And then you do the internal and the external. You have to do a lot of inner work and the external as well. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a confidence builder, but like, as you said, the confidence builds confidence. For me, it's just such a, because I'm actually, like, for a long time when people were talking about this, I was in a long-term relationship 2 years ago. It was like, they're talking about it, but like, being in it is such a different thing. And that's why, like, it's such a cool, it can be really enjoyable. Like, it can be a really good experience if you're good at it. Yeah. It's a fucking nightmare if you're not. And that's where, as you said there, I think it's just one of the things where it is, like, not for me a rep scheme, but I've just noticed the more you date, the more you talk to female, you do get better at it. But as you said, if it's shit, it's like going to the gym all the time. Like, if you're doing the same routine all the time, you're not seeing a result. It's like, well, you're doing the reps, but they're shit reps. Yeah. So it's just a small tweak. Yeah. The good enough thing is definitely the thing I think most men would have the knock-on effect, and that reinforcement. Self-limiting belief cops, it's heavy. Like, for me, it is anyway. Like, the one thing I want to ask you, and I think this is a very interesting one, because most men will hide behind this, is the Hinge, the Tinder, the Bumble. Yeah. What way do you see like that, like, in terms of like, do you see that as like a cop-out?
For a lot of people it is. In and of itself, dating apps are just a tool. They're just like Instagram. Instagram is a tool. It depends on how we use it, right? So I think dating apps are amazing as a tool to get dates, but I don't think within my soul that you can get a good relationship without being able to approach either. Right? I think you need both. Now, a lot of people, they think they can hide behind the screen.
One question, do you count Instagram as a dating app?
It's the number one dating app in the world.
Yeah, 'cause that's what I would. That's what,
Of course. If you build it well. And here's the interesting thing. I used Instagram 5 years ago when I had 300 followers, but my profile was well built and I was getting shit tons of dates just from Instagram, right? With not a lot of followers, because the right girls, they don't care that much about followers. Now, everybody generally is impressed by status. That's just a human condition, right? Nothing wrong with that. But the right girls, they don't care too much about it if you have amazing pictures and you post great stories. What men don't understand is if you post a story on Instagram, that's like a direct message to all of the women you're currently talking to without investing so it doesn't lower your value, which is really interesting. So you make a post, all of the women that come from Hinge, that come from an approach, that come from whatever, they're all where? On your Instagram. They watch all of your stories, right? And then they watch that and it's something called the mere exposure effect in marketing. If I'm in a country I've never been to, am I going to drink Coca-Cola or Schmoke-a-Mola? I'm going to drink the brand that I know. And simply by being exposed, Fernanda and I, we dated for a long time before we actually made it exclusive. She watched my Instagram stories all the time. And I had a couple of hundred followers at best at the time. I had nothing. But all I did was me kicking the bag, me getting a kale smoothie at 2 a.m. in the morning in Dublin, right? Me dancing with girls, and hilarious stories.
you dancing with girls is a big one. Like that's a big pull.
That is the bit that hits like a motherfucker. Yeah.
That has to, like, that's like fucking, she's watching that, lying in bed going, baller.
Bro, I've had girls where I approached them and they ignore me for a month, watch me dance with other girls for a month on my Instagram stories with like 50 views or something. She'd be one of them. After 4 weeks, I want to meet. We meet, boom, immediately. Just because there's so much status build and so much social proof, huh?
That's so interesting. Because, like, for me, I think, like, a lot of people, like, even, like, initially when I was getting back in, I was like, I'll download the apps before I'd approach. Like, that was the initial about last, like, a year ago. Now, I got fucking banned from one, which was a fucking mess. Not for, like, messages, but I got banned.
I can help you get back on.
People were reporting it as a fake account because I'd never had that before. Because people were messaging me and like, is this you? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, oh, fuck, I reported. And I was like, fuck. I was like, and then I got banned and I came back. I was a nightmare. Yeah. But, like, I do notice that most men will be on it. And I feel like that actually... Like, the amount of men that must be in women's inboxes and them things, like, it must be hectic.
Yeah.
It must be. And so you...
True, but it doesn't really matter because they're still super effective. It's just most men have shitty pictures. They don't know how to present themselves. They write a shitty bio and their texting fucking sucks. Horrible. 99% of men suck at texting.
It's like a skill. Like,
it is.
Like,
we have a texting framework, bro.
That's
like,
insane.
We've analyzed 1,000 to 2,000 texting conversations and now we have a framework that's like pop, 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 pop. It is because texting is so... And now I see the matrix. It's like when you go to when I tell you, for example, when I told you my workout, right? I didn't even know there was something wrong with it. Your reaction was like, "What the fuck are you even doing?"
Yeah.
Because for you, it's so evident. For me, I don't even see what's wrong with it. Right? It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, because like there is that as well where I've had conversations, and I'm sure most men like people hate to admit it, but I'll be straight. Where like you're like they like you, they're fucking match. That's happened to me before on Instagram. They're DM me flat out, and then like you have a small interaction. And then they ghost, and you're like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But then the problem is men go, oh, fuck women, fuck that. But it's whatever you've done in that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also the thing is, I've had that before where I've done that to females, and you forget, like, their dog could have died. Like, you're the last thing on their mind. Absolutely. And if you were sorting the conversation of it was good enough, they will come. Like, they will be straight to you. And I usually notice for me in particular, it's like, the more I am me, the more I am relaxed, the more it's like jokey. Like, really good example is like if I'm flirting with somebody and I was out in the street now and I'm holding a sign with my content, like I will just send her that and I'll be like, I'm busy here making people do press ups. I'll talk to you in a day or two. And they're just like, it's me laughing down the phone, but it's like, that's actually the reality of it. It's just like, I'll talk to you in a day or two. Like I'm fucking, and it's just like the more you are you and stupid and funny and high energy, whereas I think they're getting like if I ever got a how's your day text, I'd actually be like, I'm gonna be sick, like, because you don't give a fuck. Yeah. You're just trying to have a conversation. Like, I don't care how, like, it sounds terrible, but like most men don't care how your day is. Like, they want it in your knickers or they want to take you out on a date. The guests long term. True. But if they don't know what to say, texting framework's insane.
Yeah, no,
it's really quite quick to go to. You must be quick to go to dates then from
5 to 15 messages. It depends. So you can't go for the close straight away.
Can't be like first messages like meet me. I'm a serial killer.
No, because it will work with 10% of the women. And the ones who respond, it's done. It's a done deal. But so there's certain actions that have high risk that decrease the amount of total responses you'll get, but when it hits, there's very quick escalation. Same with an opener. If I walk up to you and I'm extremely sexual in my open, 9 out of 10 women will say no. The one that does say yes, there's going to be escalation very quickly. So you want to find the highest reward for the lowest risk. So a really good opener people can use is just, you seem like you have great energy, Sarah. That's a good one. Or if you have a dog, she has a dog. You can say something like, we should go on a dog double date someday, but I wouldn't know if I'd be able to handle it if they got on better than we do, right? Or for example, she has like good manicure and she's traveling. You can say it must be difficult to maintain a manicure like that given your active lifestyle. These are just like a couple
That's
of...
insane. Like,
You know, but like that's different. She's never heard that. Now the best ones are actually still tailored to a profile. But then you want to have like 5 to 15 messages ish. You want to have that. Then you want to have a transition message, a value message where you share a little bit of what's going on, a little bit about, and then you go for like the soft close, which is let's meet for drinks one of these days. She says cool, and then you just go with a concrete suggestion of a time and place.
interesting. Yeah, definitely. Because like most men just don't talk about it. So it's very interesting to talk openly about it because I feel most men are afraid of being like judged. Whereas like,
Men have such an ego around the whole subject. They think they should already be good at this because it's women. And how many men lie about the amount of women and the quantity of women they've been with? Have you ever had that? A guy goes, I've been with this girl, she was amazingly hot. Then you see a picture and you're like, bruv, right? So exactly.
but I hear like that's like the same thing as like if I'm seeing a girl like long term and we're having sex, it's like not asking for feedback, but like you're having open communication, being like, what position you're.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That is the best way to do it. Whereas a lot of
course.
like whenever I talk to like a female and like they're like, oh, this went well, that, and I'm like, what are you like? If sex isn't going well, like what are you talking about? And she's
Yeah.
like, oh, we don't really like it. Just sort of, I'm like,
Yeah, exactly.
you're not coming. You're not telling him. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, after I'm like, give me score, like hit me score, like, and then tell me how I can move. Because the thing is, the better
what do
it
you
is,
like?
the more they're
What do you not like? Exactly.
the better it is, the more they're gonna want.
100% communicate your needs. Women are surprisingly willing to meet your needs when you communicate them. And if you're trying to meet hers as well, it's just most men are scared shitless because we crave the love and the validation so much that the thought, man, I had anxiety and panic attacks when I was in the relationship with my ex-wife. I had a panic attack the day after the wedding because I was with somebody that I shouldn't have been in, but I was afraid of losing her. I was so afraid of losing her that I stayed in the relationship with somebody. She's not a bad person at all. She's a good person at heart, but we really weren't right for one another. And so men come from such a place of fear and scarcity that they can't do that. And I just say radical honesty. And then eventually you want to make it kind candor, as Gary Vee calls it. You want to be nice and you want to wrap it nicely. But be radically honest. You like that? I like that. I don't like that. Most men have never even said to a woman, don't do that.
Yeah, 100%. Like
In their life, they've never uttered the words, don't do that, please.
And then I think that also takes away like the dominance from you, because now you're not like, you don't have to lead in everything, but like even in sex, it's like, no, like let's do this or let's do that or and it's just like taking charge in most areas. It's like making a decision of where the date goes. It's different. Like for example, I was on a date a while back and I was like, we were in a town where she was from, and I was like to her straight, I would always pick where we would go for food, but I've never been here. You've lived here 5 years. I was like, you tell me where's good. And then she was like, I don't, and I was like, no. I was like, you either pick or I'm just going to pick a random place and we're going to go there. But it's like bringing up, like, even while you're not making a decision, it's like giving you fucking clarity. I will fucking make this.
Yeah.
But it's like, you've got the fucking bias. It's like me coming to Germany and being like, I'll make the decision, but you're like, I fucking know where to go. Yeah, no, I find the dating profile so interesting because that's the first place most men go. But Instagram's the one, as you said, like people don't want to, like Tinder, Bumble, like when you go on to them apps, like, most men are going on to fuck. Some will be going on to find love and all that, but like
I would say most want a relationship. 90% of men, in my experience, 90% of men just want a relationship.
Like, it's not, yeah, I suppose, yeah, that actually makes sense. Whereas I assume Instagram, it's like, you also there's less, it has to be a bigger app or a bigger dating app because there's less skin in the game replying to somebody's story than DMing them on Bumble.
Yeah.
Like you can reply to anyone's story, no matter even if you think she's out of your league, like you can reply.
Yeah.
You can send a message.
You can message anyone. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, it is. It's insane. Like
now they do have this feature where some accounts have limited who you can text and who you can't or whatever. But overall, it's fantastic. If you have a good profile, you just need 9 to 12 good pictures. That's it. A couple of story highlights. And then you post 1 to 2 stories every day. It's an effort of like 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, and then I do think as well there's something said for men with lower following counts, because this goes to the caveat. When you have a very high following count, like I bumped into women like before and they were like, I would have messaged you, but I'd just get lost in the DMs. And you're just like, yeah. So then you start to fall into that, like, where they're not messaging you because they just assume you're getting loads of attention. Now, you still do get loads, but it's like, I wonder how many think, oh, not bother replying, like, because they don't see.
My first German business consultant, he actually says this. He says the more followers you get, the less people will actually message you because they think that.
Yeah, 100%. I noticed that for a long time until I probe people to, like, not women, but like even just men. Like, I still take on clients and they're like, fuck, with 1 million followers, they just assume you're not.
Yeah, they assume you're just like what
I'm just floating about made of money now. It's like with sponsorship deals. I'm like, no, I'm
still exist.
Yeah, it was like yesterday I put up like a video like in my house. We were doing a reel, and the hook was my sister was like, if you snack, you're an idiot. And the hook was her pouring 2 liters of milk on my head. And then I put up a story later being like,
I saw that in your stories. I saw your stories with the milk. And
I was like, we had a milk party. Mate, that's at 6 a.m.
That was awesome.
So that was so early. And I put up being like, having a milk party.
Yeah, I saw that in your story.
And then I was like, the amount of flooding off the back of it, just by making it interesting and making it different, but made it hectic. Like it's such an interesting concept, because you look at somebody else and be like, well, if I had a lower following, then Joe, I might get more interaction if I message somebody. Whereas like if I message a fake, she probably assumes it's a bot. Do you know what I mean? Or the Tinder account's fake, or this is fat. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like everybody's got their own battles that they like to fall into.
And everybody makes excuses.
It fucking is that.
Ultimately, the results we have, they come from our actions.
But I've done that.
We all do.
Have you used to do that? Yeah. Like make excuses like
for like approaches or for
everything.
For everything.
Yeah, with dating, everything. I would have the same.
And it was, but the funny thing is, I would not make the excuses consciously, because I got into martial arts from an early age on, so I got called out a lot. It was more the subconscious excuses that I was, because to be honest, when I caught myself making an excuse, I usually stopped myself quickly. But it was the ones that I didn't know that I was making. It was the beliefs that I had that I didn't question. Because to be honest, I was like, I think about 16 or so when I got into martial arts. That point on, I stopped making excuses consciously. But it was unconscious beliefs of, that won't work anyway. This is my limit. I couldn't possibly do this. I think Alex Hormozi says we question everything except for the things we truly believe, those we just believe. Yeah. And Tony Robbins says our blueprint, our beliefs, the story, that's what shapes us long term. Can I get a woman to this? Or how much is it going to cost me? How uncomfortable is it going to be? People don't go to the gym because they think they're going to get laughed at, because they think they're going to have to sacrifice so much. The perceived cost of change, the anticipated cost of change is so high. Have you ever heard of the formula of change? No. It's fucking sick. Imagine like a mathematical formula with like something at the top, something at the bottom. So at the bottom, it's the denominator. At the top, it's the, I don't fucking know in English, right? But you know like a calculation where you have the thing, you have something on top, you have something on the bottom, right? So on top, there's 3 factors that increase the probability that change is going to occur. First thing you need pain, dissatisfaction, what we talked about earlier. Then that's not enough. You need a positive vision. You need to know what life could be like if I was in great shape, if I had an awesome person. And the higher those are, the higher the pain, the higher the positive vision, the higher the likelihood that I'm willing to change. And then the last step, the last necessary ingredient is we need next steps. We also need to know what the fuck can do. I can be motivated by away from and towards motivation, by pain and pleasure. If I don't have a plan on how to count even calories, on a nutrition plan, an exercise plan, if I don't know what to do, I won't act. So I need all of those. Now, why do some men have a lot of pain, a good positive vision, they know what they need to do, and they still don't change? Because at the bottom is the perceived cause of change. They think it's going to cost them so much. Am I going to lose friends when I do this? Am I going to have to give up comfort? Am I going to risk my social status if I get a rejection? So the perceived cost of change is so high. So once you lower that, then people start taking action.
You also, I'm sure this overlaps as well, the pain and the vision, like the amount of pain you feel, if you don't take action when that's high, you'll not. So like really good example of that is like a breakup 6 months in versus 3 years in. If you waited 3 years, the pain's not the same anymore. It's dulled and you haven't taken action. And that's the problem with, like, for example, if you get somebody and they're doing approaches or they're talking to women and they've got enough pain, they've got the vision, but they haven't thought about, right, the pain is here, the vision's here. I need the skill set. And then they waste their energy on tactics that don't work. I see it all the time with fitness. It's like you have the motivation, you have that, but you're like, I can do it myself. And that's somewhere I fell down, where it's like, now I just pay for shortcuts all the time. Like I have a business mentor, I have a content mentor, I have people on everything. And it's like, it's almost like a cheat code. I hate when people say it because it sounds like you're pitching, but it's just one of these things where I'm like,
but it's the truth.
It's like, I'm doing a recipe book next month. I always use that as an example. I'm like, I would rather buy a recipe book and know how to make the pie than be like, I've got this, bro. Because it's going to take a long fucking time now. Do you know what I mean? But that's the thought process, like every fucking time. But you've got that, like, you've got a good energy though with, like, you see when people are near you though, I'm sure it's almost like borrowing confidence. Because I feel like right now you could like throw me in your room with a load of women and I'm like almost like, you will carry me. So like, I suppose people get that with you. It's like, you're also getting that, like, you've done it with so many people, like, so you've got proof. Yeah. It's like me with results. Like I have all in men that are shredded. So it's like what I say has more weight than what you would say if it is, and vice versa. So I think it gives you that like, well, I'm doing it right. So it's just a matter of I listen, I get the result. Because like even what you're saying to me, I'm like, interesting. Like that's good to know, because that either reaffirms or I'm like, oh, that's off. Because I don't challenge it, because I'm like, the confidence is there.
I thought what it was doing was great, you know, and it does work mentally.
It works, but it's like,
Mentally works, but it's so obvious for you that if I made a couple of small changes,
yeah, it's optimizing.
I can't even see it. That's amazing. So when we say get out, that's not just a pinch, it's the reality. Because in life, we either learn by ourselves or we learn from other people. And the things we learn by ourselves are very limited to breathing, I'd say. Even walking, we learn from other people. Talking, we learn from other people. It's just, why would I waste so much time? And then there's free resources for people who can't afford it. There's paid resources for the people who can't afford it. And I think that's what you're trying to do. It's what I'm trying to do with my content as well. I'm trying to help people who can pay, and I'm trying to help people who can't pay.
Your marketing will change more lives than your content ever will. Or sorry, than your coaching ever will. Like your marketing will change more lives than your coaching ever will, because not everybody will, one, invest, or two, afford. As much as it is that. And it's like one tip here, one tip there. You don't realize it. And I'm sure you get the message too. Yeah. Oh my God, this actually worked for me. Or like this. And you're like, fuck, you get it. You should be surprised by how many people get that.
Yeah.
And it's such a nice light up. It's such a big difference. You don't realize like how many, but people don't realize that as well. If you're listening at home and you have a small follower, your business, you don't realize like the small impact. Like when you turn around to somebody and you say a compliment to the person, like really good example is like I was out in Galway last week and I was ordering a drink and I got my teeth done on the Thursday, right? So I got like composite bond, and like on the Friday, like the girl served me and then went on. She came over to the table. And then was like, I forgot, I actually wanted to say to you, your teeth are on. And I was like, I just got them done. I was like, that means so much. And like, I was like, I actually just like appreciate, and I just stood up and I just hugged her instantly. And she was like, held back. And I was like, that means so much. And then 2 minutes later, she brought over another girl to like, go like, look at his teeth. Joe, like, she was like, but she was like, yeah, but she was doing it as like, I want them done more. So like a showcase. So I was like, smiling like that. But it was a case of like, I need to get mine. It was even at the bar, but it was a case of like, even just the energy and like how you come across the guy is it's so vital, like, but it's one of the things you don't realize it. And it's like that small interactions people have will light you up and build you up for them, other things. And that's why, as you said, the social circle and the gym and the hiring somebody, they're all like pieces of the jigsaw. Whereas like the problem is you can have 3 or 4, but it's like the more you have in order, the easier it is. Cause it's the same way like your work, like your job, like if you've got a good home life, you're in better flow because you're having good sex, you're sleeping well, you're not
stable.
Yeah, the more areas you are, everything else flows. Yeah. Like we're always going to look for the gaps, but it's like, are you sitting at home and you're going, I'm miserable because I don't have a relationship, but you're also fat, overweight, Joe, not worked on this, you've not worked on that. And it's like, well, if you sort all these other things, then you're only working on one piece. Whereas it's like, if I have everything fucked, I'm always like, right, well, what's the one you need to sort the most and what's going to help the rest? And that's why I would always lean towards like fitness, or you'll lean towards that. It's like, it's the piece of the jigsaw.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people go wrong too. But I find the dating apps interesting. I appreciate the insight, and I must get you look at my profile up.
What do you like so much about making content? You said that's something that you really enjoy. What do you enjoy about it?
For me personally, it just lights me up. Like it's very hard to explain. Like I think I have it fills me with belief, because for me personally, like without getting in, like I always struggled to make friends, was picked on, speech therapy, all this jazz. And I remember coaching picking up quite well. I'm debating leaving the fire service for coaching, and it was just before lockdown, and I left. And I remember coaching picked up to a stage of where I was like, I'm burning out from the amount of clients I'm getting. Like I just couldn't cope. And I was like, the only way I can pivot out of just coaching and make this like go from like big to like holy, like generational, is by doubling down the content. So I remember being like, I'm taking a massive cut in pay to go into content. And like I hired my sister full time. I was like, I just need you to be able to stand with camera. I hired another videographer. I made him move in with me for months on end. And I was like, I fully backed myself. And I was like, this is beyond a gamble. Like I was like, I'm putting everything on the line here. Because I was like, 50% of my clients, I was like, look, hey, I can't coach anymore. Like this is off. And I cut all the dead weight and moved on. And it's now every time I film, I'm like, it's like almost like reaffirming like what you went for, it came through. Cause like I had to double down, and like, it's like every time I'm filming now, it lights me up, because I'm like, this reaffirms like I can do what I say. It's like every single time I'm like, why am I filming in the streets of Dublin when nobody else is? It's like, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. But also, you know, I built up, this is the next step. It's the next, and it builds me, as I said, because I find it so uncomfortable. Like I find that, see today, like going out in public, like people think like that's normal. See stand with a sign saying like, get me a monster and win a prize. And there's 70 people to the right and 2 cameras on you. People think, oh, it's an ego boost. It's like, your heart's like, boom, 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 boom. And then you're doing press ups and the guards are walking over and you're like, fuck, like, do I break character? Do I not? Am I getting a fine? And it's like, that stress then, like the next rep I do, I'm like, well, that builds me in every area into who I want to be. But the content lights me up because of that. And now also because I just wish like somebody like me personally was there whenever I was in a issue. It's the same as your content. Like I wish your content was whenever I was like younger and struggled even more with that. Because that would have been so helpful. Like how to text, as much as people are like, that's metal. Like that is such, like that's something you would Google now. Like, or there's loads of help on that. But look, back when you were starting, it wasn't. So it's like being that person you wish you were. I think we all want to help somebody else. And then that gives you fulfillment. Like even in one of the videos, like somebody came up in the middle and was like, the person was doing press ups, 50 press ups for 50 euros. And someone came up and was like, dude, you're Tony McAlevey. Like your content's changed my life. You would swear I was a paid actor. And I just hugged him and was like, yes. And he's got that in video. And it's like, it's a really good memory. And it's, and it's just like, it lights you up. Whereas like, as I said, like the content, like when I get 500,000 views in a reel, that is 500,000 people that could actually like get a result or see an improvement in their physique. Then they feel more confident. Then that day, it could be the day where you get a good bicep pump after the gym. You ask the girl out of the counter. You actually take your shot. Yeah. And then your life changes because you watched one video, you felt good in the gym, you got in shape, and you had the balls to ask her out. And all of a sudden, you're married 20 years. Now, you'll never relate that to me. But that's that butterfly effect. It's like there's just the confidence to even walk up and approach. And that could just make you little bit less nervous. And the next time you do it, you meet your wife. And it's just that them little things are like the big things. It's like that excites me. Whereas like everything else in business is cool and making money is great. But I'm like what is like global, like what's awesome and what scares me. And that's the only way I get to places that scare me now. Like making money, sitting at home, doing check-ins, doing physique, doing bodybuilding shows. I'm like, this is a bit meh. Whereas like the bigger my content gets, the more risks I'm playing to. Like I'm flying places, I'm collabing with people I never even dreamed of. I'm handing out, like I gave somebody €200 earlier for a tin of Monster. I was like, fucking hell. Like she was near crying, but that's what lights me up. What about you? What lights you up about the content?
I agree. So there's 2 things. One, I selfishly enjoy, and then there's the contribution component. When I wanted to make...
Why do you enjoy it? I'm curious.
Why do I enjoy it? So one, the contribution component is getting these messages of changing people's lives, because we actually really do. And the overall thing for me is, if you talk about life's purpose, I'm going to let Elon worry about what happens to Earth in 100,000 years. But what's very real for me is over the next 50 years, how many people are there that suffer unnecessarily? I want to reduce unnecessary suffering, because I suffered a shit ton in a relationship with my ex-wife. And I don't want people to go from that. And that was avoidable.
That's annoying enough.
I'm not complaining about myself whatsoever. I'm perfectly happy where I am. But I don't want people to go through that. And so if I can get this many, however many people over the course, I'll tell you what it really is. There was a video that I once watched 10 years ago or so of a German guy, I think, on a German television show. I think he was Jewish, and he's basically an old man, 89 years of age, and the audience is full of people. And the lady goes, "Who here has been saved by Mr. blah, blah, blah?" And basically, these were all children, Jewish children that he saved during the Holocaust from the concentration camp. And like he's crying, like that is something that resonated with me. I was like, I want that. I want a room full of people who have really been impacted massively. Like for me, it's either all or nothing. I think they feel alive because I really have like a lot of impact. And when I work with people and I see them have these breakthroughs, that is awesome. So that is overall big purpose. In terms of the content, I don't know why I like it. I just love it. For me, there's a mastery element in it. In speaking, there is, constantly trying to get better at it. I watch my videos and I'm trying to improve my communication skills and trying to find new angles because I love the subject. There's only 2 things that I really love, which is personal development and dating. And I love talking about that. I've talked about, at some point you've talked about, I mean, you must have the same challenge of content. I've said everything there is to say. Now I just got to find new ways to say it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's no new concept that I can possibly talk about. I've made 2,500 short form videos, 800 YouTube videos, shit. At some point, everything's talked about. So I need to find new angles. So I'm sitting in an airplane. I'm writing things down, and I like writing, and then I like coming up with new ideas, and I like the presentation aspect.
Surely, two things. First, surely we'll go partner is the most important first, and then I'll do the content. But the thing that the reason you'll change most lives is maybe straight is like for me, and I got asked this the other week, and it was a very serious question on like a talking point. And it was like, what are you looking for? And like I was like, fuck. I was like, I don't even need to I don't even need to think I know, because I was like, the partner is the biggest decision in your life, because like that is who your next family is going to be. Like that is literally it. And that's why, as you said, that either makes or breaks people. So if you can't get who you want, you'll get who you settle for, and that's not the end goal. And that's the problem with a lot of things. So that's why it's such a big motivating factor. And then I think an interesting content point for you would be, and I think for people at home is like I'm going to tell you how to code approach. Here is my ex-client or me, and you be like, we're going to go over here, we're going to be mic'd, and he sits in the corner and films, and it's just raw. And that see, for me, I'm like, you learn so much, and then a post-analysis breakdown, like that for me is like, that's gold, because you're getting like light. It's because a lot of people were like, it's easy to say. It's like, don't tell me, show me. It's like me in the gym. Like imagine me telling you how to curl, but not curling. It's like, so that could be an interesting point, because like I immediately would watch that. I'd be like,
The problem with that,
public viewing.
filming women without consent.
Can you ask them after, and they're saying no, you just leave it?
You'd have to ask beforehand. Legally, you would. Yeah, depending in different countries, it's different. In Washington, so there's legal ramifications about it. Yeah, I thought about it, but it's the best. It's the single best. The interaction that I have, if I would have them on video and show to people, that'd be absolutely like bro. And people do it, but a lot of their accounts get taken down.
Oh, interesting. It's not worth it. You do, and you couldn't even use pay. Like for example, like you could have a conversation.
The people who are gonna, if it's paid, then the people on Instagram who are gonna review it won't know that it's paid actors.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. That's because that's the first thing I would think. I would be like on a YouTube. I'd be like, I would love to learn like that if I was a fella, because you're like, that is like fresh forward. It's straight there, because like it's just one of them things where it's like that is like more real. So then it's more so like you would almost need to like,
that's why we do it.
AI script, like not AI script, but like record it but not post anywhere, and then write it out and like talk through. But this is why I said this is. Do you know what I mean? It's like text messages.
Sure, clients, because our clients, we have that all.
Yeah,
all of that available for our clients. But
that's so interesting, because that's the
an amazing tool to learn from, and I would love to share more of it. We'll see what happens with Elon on Twitter over the next year or two.
Yeah,
It could be interesting, but it's absolutely valuable. But that's why, for example, I do personal events with people.
the first thing I said in the street though, like I was like, just so you know, if you're doing press, we're on camera that good, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, right, cut that out, and you're back to film, because it's just like that. Or at the end of the clip, I'll be
The
like,
thing is, with women, you're not going to get a natural reaction to television.
no chance, especially whenever it's
If you want to make a wheel that broke there.
no, it's not. Yeah, it's just interesting. That's so interesting. But it's good because like the partner thing is the biggest thing you can have in your life, and if you're helping with that, that's such a big change though. Because for me, that is it. Like that is.
It's not just the therapy, it's that's huge for me. It gives me so much happiness every day. Because if I sit here at 1 a.m. in the morning, talk to clients of US bleeding out of my eyes because I've worked 13 hours in a day, I'm tired. She comes to me and she says, "Thank you, I'm so proud of you."
Yeah.
In past relationships, I would have gotten anger and upset, and I would have been gaslit for not giving enough attention. Not one time has she ever complained about me working too much. That's the problem. But then there's also the male friends component, because one sword that I'm willing to die on, one message that I'm really trying to push is male friends. Because ask yourself the times you're suffering lost in your life, were you with your friends or were you alone? You were alone.
100%.
It's very difficult to feel really bad if you're around good friends.
Yeah.
Any problem you have is 100 times less bad if you're around friends. Jordan Peterson says that we outsource society, because even just by being around, we get a release of oxytocin, we get a release of testosterone, and people forget how much social contact we actually need. People think, yeah, I spent a couple hours this week. We grew up during a time 300,000 years ago. Our brain was shaped when we had our Bible 100 people around us every day. We had our friends around us every day, not just one day weekend. Every day we're supposed to have men around us. Every day men need to have elder men around them for optimal performance. Ideally, at least several days a week.
But for me, during my lowest times or whatever I've struggled the most, it's as cliche as it sounds, like whether you're at the high or you're at the lowest point in your life, like it's one of these things. Whenever you're at the highest point or the lowest point, like your mind can get taken off everything by having a beer with a friend and chilling out. That's why, like, when people ask me about my alcohol take, I'm like, have a drink, just one, and or do whatever you used to do for fun. If it's going golf or whatever, and just have a laugh like you're young again. Because I was like, no matter how high you are, how low you are, just shooting shit with your friends is like half the game. Because I'm like, no matter how good it's going or how bad it is, you can still have a laugh and a joke, and that's key. But as you said, it's the right people. And the same with family too. If it's the right family,
It's the right family. Yes,
That's true.
Absolutely. Because you can have some people, like I'm very blessed. It seems like you are as well. I have very good family members. Like my dad, my brother. I'm in a little relationship with them. A lot of people don't have that, and they need to find good quality friends. Because if you're around them, it's almost the sense of everything will be okay.
yeah, it doesn't. Nothing matters. That's why I said like high or low, like shooting shit, having the crack with your man it's just unparalleled. That's why like I think it's so pivotal as well. Like I drill that in. I'm like, even like me and you go out for dinner after and having a crack, it's just like that is what life is all about. It's not about everything else. It's like the moment, a laugh, and like that's where it's just so key. But that's where a lot miss out, and then that fills your cup.
Yeah, and because they don't put that on their vision board. They put a lot of stuff on their vision board and their goals, but they don't make quality male friendships a goal. I always say this: you can find 1 or 2 new male best friends in the next month or two. Go to a gym, for example. Where do you find friends? In the gym, in the sauna, in the ice bath, wherever. You strike up conversations in a martial arts gym. You talk to people. You DM them on Instagram, for example, if you have the How Hobby account, and then you go and talk business. You go to the gym together. You approach women. You go into nature. That's it.
Civil things. And you like one thing I've noticed from my friends is you're probably the same. You'll notice as time moves on, people move and people go, oh, it just faded. But like any relationship I want to keep, I have. And all it is simple. Like I have a friend in Dubai, Conliffe, and like I'll text him every so often. We haven't spoken. I'll just go, how's your headspace? What's up? And 9 times out of 10, I'll be fine. It might be something up the odd time. And then you're just having a bit of, and he will say to me whenever I meet him and be like, see that message 2 years ago, he goes, that's why I'm your friend. He's like, you have my back, I've got you. And then, but it's one of them things like, it can be something as simple as he texted me and they're like, because people are like, oh, it just grew apart. I'm like, no, you let it fade because it wasn't a priority to you. Whereas, and I think that's the problem with a lot of men, they come out of a long-term relationship and they have no male friends because they've only been prioritizing that and other things. Whereas like, that's why it's so tricky, because you do need to have your shit together so you can balance a relationship, a family, male friends, work, fit. Like there's a lot of plates to spin. And that's why I was saying like you need to know what you're going to be shit at, or like when a new relationship picks up, it's okay to drop the ball a little bit, but there's a difference between dropping the ball for a month or two while you're seeing a new girl and a lifetime.
And making her the center of your world. I was talking to a client the other day. He works in medicine. He's in his 50s. And he recently started a new relationship with a lady. And he started realizing that her attraction levels went down a little bit. And he said, I think I'm over-investing. And he named a couple of things. I said, they're not over-investing. But then actually, Fernanda and I were both on a phone call with him. And we said, this is what's happening. You're making her the center of your life. You're inviting her to every single one of your events. You're taking her everywhere. No, you still have to have your life. She still has to see that. Okay, this week I'm going to go on with the boys. See you later, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You still have your own life that independently makes you happy. If she realizes that she's the sole source of happiness for you, that's a disaster. She wants to feel like, here's the messed up thing, women will temporarily reward you for something that they'll punish you for in the long term. For example, giving up your values or just giving up your boundaries. Oh, thank you for letting me chill out with my male best friend. I appreciate it. But in the long term, it shows respect for you. And if it's respect lost, then attraction is lost.
Yeah, because I've noticed that before. Like I was saying to you earlier, like sometimes I'll attract quite like a strong female who like would almost be like, to most people be like, she would like, if you approached her, she like, most people would be like, no. Do you know, like that sort of female? But the funniest thing is then I asked them, like I always ask them like, why did the last relationship fall out? And she's like, I lost attractiveness to them. And I'm like, cause he wasn't dominant enough, or he didn't have the boundary. He wouldn't shut you. Whereas it's like, and then immediately it'll be like, I don't know why I'm attracted to you. And I'm like, because you know I will like cut you if you're out of line. And it's like, but that's not what she says she wants, but it actually is. It's because like, it's very interesting because like, it's like reading like almost attraction, because most people don't know why they're attracted. Yeah. It's like good looking, but it's like, there's something about them, but it's like, what is the fucking something like? Yeah. No, this has been good. Like,
absolutely, man. It was awesome. I think this we're gonna wrap it up. You enjoyed it, man. Thank you.
Pleasure. Legend. That was like the Arnold handshake. Like, where's your bicep? Was out. Boom.